shotglassdigital.com.
This is what you can look forward to on episode 95 of Skywalking Through Neverland.
Welcome, foolish mortals.
I got walked off at Indiana Jones once. You know, they turn on the lights and that room is storage.
For 38 years, I've always wanted to know what that title meant. Lo, the Moons of Yavin.
Did you never read any Shakespearean plays?
If you want to have Vader in Rebels, you can't just bring him into it, because he's going to crush them.
And Sarah, didn't you have a comment about Han Solo's pants?
Oh.
Size matters not.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls.
Listen!
A billion years in the making.
Welcome to Neverland.
What do you know?
You'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll kiss $3 goodbye.
Hey, Skywalkers! Thank you so much for coming back to Skywalking Through Neverland. And welcome to any and all new Skywalkers out there. We are the family-friendly Star Wars Disney podcast that brings you entertaining stories from creators and fans. This is Richard, and please, everyone, say hello to my sweetie marathon trainer wife, Sarah.
That's me. Yeah, we just came back from a nice 2-mile walk run.
Yeah, we're training for the Avengers Marathon.
Mm-hmm. And the Infinity Gauntlet Challenge.
Oh my goodness.
We're
in
gonna
just a few weeks.
We're gonna get some cool medals, though. That's like the whole point of doing this is the medals. Don't you agree?
Oh, those medals are high quality.
They really are, yes. So Skywalkers, we want to thank you for supporting the show throughout all of social media. And of course, I want to welcome all the new Skywalkers as well. Now, if you're listening now, you are officially a Skywalker, and we love it when you tweet at us at SkywalkingPod while you're listening. We have several Skywalkers who do that, and it's just such a trip to hear you responding to things that we say that we recorded like a couple days ago. So that's exciting.
Like last week when we were on our way to Las Vegas, and I dropped this quote, "People on lewds should not drive," and asked for listeners to tweet in if you knew what movie it was from.
That's right.
And you were on it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for those of you who don't know, that was Jeff Spicoli from the hit 1982 movie, Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yay.
It's a movie we gotta watch again. Now, another question for you tweetwalkers. What Star Wars connection does Fast Times now have with Star Wars?
Oh. I don't know this answer.
Well, you won't know until people start tweeting in.
Okay, well, I'm excited. So everyone tweet at us at SkywalkingPod. Now, we are recording this episode from Long Beach, California on October 6th, 2015.
And coming up on this week's show, we kick off our month-long salute to Halloween when we speak with Jeff Baham. Sorry, Jeff. It had to be
said.
And now he runs the doombuggies.com website, and he's also the author of the unauthorized story of Walt Disney's Haunted Mansion.
As well as he is one of the co-hosts of Mousetalgia Podcast, and which I've been listening to ever since Star Wars Celebration Anaheim.
Yeah, and we'll get in some really fun Haunted Mansion stories that I never knew.
Yeah, because he's done so much research. There's so much to the Haunted Mansion, even beyond last year's Halloween, where we kind of went into the story of the Haunted Mansion.
With ghost host Dave Scale.
Mm-hmm.
And also coming up on this episode, we get some advice and wisdom from our fairy podmother, Margaret Kerry, and her Ask Tink segment.
And we also dive into another classic Marvel Star Wars comic segment where we will cover issue number 5 with Star Wars artist Randy Martinez. Now, Randy will be attending New York Comic-Con, and if you go up to him and say the magic...
You gotta listen to the segment.
Well, we have to listen to the segment, but he will have some Skywalking Through Neverland goodies. He's our liaison there at New York Comic-Con. So, if you listen to this segment, you will know
how
what you have
can
to
get
do.
those goodies.
Right.
He's got some BB-8 buttons, some Skywalking buttons. And
There's special things you have to do.
Yes, he'll have some things of his own to give away, so you can walk away with a big goodie bag full of goodies.
Plus, look at his beautiful artwork and maybe even buy something.
And then coming up in just a few minutes, we're going to share with you our experience at the Star Wars Rebels press conference held at Disney last week.
Now, we also have shout-outs and our Skywalker of the Week, and a few of happy anniversary messages that we were unable to put on our last episode, so we wanted to add some more.
So a really, really full episode. But before we get into all that, we want to tell you about our big Trick or Treat Spooktacular podcast crossover contest.
Doesn't that sound awesome?
It does. It does sound awesome. It's going to be really fun. Now, basically, this is the concept. Sarah and I are going to go trick-or-treating to 5 other podcasts. And there we're going to chat with some of our podcast friends. And with each show, we're going to get a clue. A clue that's for you. And when you put all these clues together from all 6 shows, including ours, you're going to be entered to win a very, very special prize.
That's right, and it all culminates in a Google Hangout Halloween party on October 22nd at 6 p.m. Pacific.
Now, we're going to put all this on our Facebook page.
Yes, and a blog post so you guys can read about it, but
Yeah.
that's the overall gist. You're going to be entered to win this awesome prize pack, a Sony Animation Studios bag full of Hotel Transylvania 2 stuff.
We're just going to stuff this bag with everything.
Yeah.
And when we were at the Star Wars Rebels Season 2 press conference, they gave us some goodies, which you'll be getting.
Yeah, including perhaps a Blu-ray of Star Wars Rebels Season 1. So, yeah, we're going to just put so much in this goodie bag. We are also going to Disneyland tomorrow, so maybe you'll find something there.
I know what you're talking about. Now, when Sarah and I go trick-or-treating to these other podcasts, we're going to visit our friends like the Techno Retro Dads,
Assembly of Geeks,
Window to the Magic,
Muppet Cast,
and Coffee with Kenobi. And with each podcast, you will get that clue, so you'll be entered to win this big stuffed prize bag. Now, that's for our Halloween salute this month. But then coming next month, we have our 100th episode.
It's coming up, and we have to start planning now.
So Skywalkers, we need your help.
We want you to send in a recorded message about your favorite fan moment in under a minute. So it could be Star Wars, it could be Disney, or pop culture related, and you have only 60 seconds to tell us what that is.
A favorite fan moment could be a convention experience.
Meeting someone, yeah.
The first time you saw a particular movie.
Yeah, it could have changed your life, right?
I know I say that because what I hear a lot is when people say when they first saw Little Mermaid in '89, that changed everything for them.
Yeah, yeah.
So it could be something like that. It could be a TV show that really connected with you. Anything, a fan favorite moment.
That's right, but all in under a minute. So what we'd love you to do is record that on your smartphone. You can record a voice memo and then email that in to share@skywalkingthroughneverland.com.
But don't delay because you only have until November 1st.
Ooh.
Which will be here before you know it.
Yes.
All right, Skywalkers, we want to hear from you, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what people have to say.
Yeah.
It'll be a lot of fun, And now, here are things
we want to share.
Things we want to share. Things we want to share. Things we want to share.
Last Friday, October 2nd, the Star Wars Rebels Season 2 press conference was held at the Disney Channel offices right here in Burbank. Now, in attendance was Dave Filoni,
Ashley Eckstein,
Vanessa Marshall,
D. Bradley Baker,
Freddie Prinze Jr.,
and as well as some of our podcasting friends who showed up to cover the press conference.
Podcasting friends and some Skywalkers.
Yeah, including O. Katrina,
Justin Bolger,
Justin Smith,
Matt Murphy from StarWars.com,
and Andy Gutierrez from StarWars.com.
And a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, we were so excited. It was like a mini Star Wars Celebration meetup. Like, a reunion.
Yeah, it's very rare that we all get together like this, and it's such a small, intimate setting.
Yes. Yeah, it was. It was like there was only, 30 press there, maybe?
Yeah.
If that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we screened the next 2 episodes of Star Wars Rebels Season 2 in this tiny little screening room, and right before we saw the movie, or the movie, right before we saw the 2 episodes, Dave Filoni walks in the room and he's like right in front of us. And, just, hey, I hope you like it, guys. You know how Dave Filoni is. He's so like low key.
So then the lights turned off and we got to see the next 2 episodes, which were, wow, I would say it would even parallel the Siege at Lothal.
Well, yeah, especially if you're into the Clone Wars. Yeah. You will have a lot of feels in this episode. So, because these characters come back and you're like, oh my gosh, there's just so much history there if you know the history.
Whereas the last 2 episodes that we got in June that formed one, I guess, movie of the week, they're calling it. We got Darth Vader. This time, we're getting Captain Rex.
Yeah. It's great.
So really, really fun. And one of the questions that was asked at the press conference, someone asked Dave Filoni how he feels about having Ahsoka and Captain Rex back for Star Wars Rebels.
Well, luckily I like T and Ashley. They're nice people, so hanging out with them isn't a problem. So they can be in a decent amount of episodes. But their story had to serve the story of the Rebels. That was the most important thing. I couldn't just haphazardly bring them in because I like them. I love the characters Ahsoka and Rex. It was hard to let them go after so long telling their stories, but it had to be purposeful. So for a long time on season 1, I didn't even want to have them in it. It would be brought up to me by different members of the story group, I think because they wanted to be nice and say, well, Dave, we're open to this. I'm like, yeah, but it's not right. Kanan, Hera, Ezra, Sabine, Zeb, they have to own that space. And everybody knew. So once you know them and you understand their character dynamics, to sit there and say, suddenly you're around the table and you go, wow, I wonder what Kanan would think of Rex. And you realize he probably wouldn't think much of Rex. That's very challenging because the kids that grew up with Rex love Rex. But if I was able to create a group of kids that love Rex and they also separately loved Kanan, and now we have a conflict. But you also have a boy that didn't know the Clone Wars, like any kid that didn't watch the Clone Wars. So they would go, well, what's the problem with Rex? So that we found really interesting, and that helped serve the relationship of Kanan and Ezra really well. And then this one here, Ahsoka, really helps serve the story as far as if you want to have Vader in Rebels, you can't just bring him into it because he's going to crush them. Like, they don't stand a chance, Ahsoka has a personal connection to Anakin Skywalker that we believe people are interested in. What's that side of the story? People are interested in what's Vader like before he realizes his son is alive. And so that became important. Plus, she's a force wielder that's way more progressed, no offense, Freddie, than Kanan.
No, she is.
She had much more training, from Anakin Skywalker directly, one of the greatest of all Jedi, from Obi-Wan Kenobi, from Yoda. So she brings that lineage to the Rebels, but a perspective which is, yeah, that didn't work for me. I walked away from it.
I love that there has to be a story reason to bring these characters back. And yeah, they really worked on that.
Yeah, otherwise they would just be standing there.
Yeah.
And a cameo.
Yeah.
So Dave Filoni didn't want to say too much, but he did say that each character was getting their own backstory arc.
So excited about that, including Chopper.
I want to tell stories about compelling people. And, Freddie gets his day, Taylor gets his day, Steve gets his day, even Chopper. Chopper gets his day. There's a massively huge Chopper episode. When I talk backstories this year, everybody gets it. You will find out where Hera found Chopper and how she rebuilt it. It's actually really important. But I would say of arcs, Chopper's the only one that doesn't arc. He's kind of a jerk in the beginning, and he's still pretty much a jerk later. Like you think your cat, your cat will go through that period as it gets older, and it's kind of will sit on your lap more, but it's still a jerk. There's not much you can do to change it. I think it's important for Chopper, but he does get a friend this year. So he doesn't really have...
That he doesn't eject out an airlock.
Yeah. That's a big step for him.
It is. He's growing.
Big step.
Now, in this final clip, Dave Filoni explains what happens to the clones that didn't serve the Empire after the Clone Wars.
It's a very important episode arc to me, to have Rex back. And, you want to make sure you get that right. And just to talk briefly about that, if I can, the whole thing with the clones, when I started to think about bringing them back, and I guess this is because I'm from Pennsylvania, and when you live in Pennsylvania, most old people move to Florida. And they fish. And they buy a big Winnebago or whatnot RV, and they travel to Florida. So I was always fascinated by that as a kid, and I would always draw Rex fishing. My grandfather used to fish, and he would take us fishing. And I thought this image of him fishing sitting on the back deck of something somewhere, and then I made the back deck of it a walker, and then I realized that the big gun on the ATTE looks like a giant fishing rod. And it just all started to fall into place. And it's one of those awesome things, too, because I could tell at certain points Henry Gore was like, are we seriously doing that? I'm like, yes. The fact that you think it's weird really motivates me. Like, I hate this happens. It's the wrong way to go. So I like this idea that it was a difficult thing for the clones, that they basically outlived their usefulness, and the Emperor got rid of them, the old guys. And so what did they do? Some of them go work on the docks, some of them just, wandered the streets of Coruscant, I guess. Rex somehow managed the tank and got that, and hooked up with Wolf and Gregor. So I can finally live up to what I promised kids about Gregor surviving that, which is cool for me. And there are these three old guys fishing, which is a very comforting thought to me, I guess. So that was the whole motivation, and I wanted this kind of house moving castle walking tank, wonderfully designed by Andre Kirk on the design team. And that you can't look at without hoping it becomes a Lego set, right?
So we had a fantastic time at that press conference, and a huge, huge thank you to Tracy Canobio for making that happen.
Mm-hmm. And also to Trisha Barr, because I actually went for Fangirls Going Rogue. And you will hear more clips from this press conference on Fangirls Going Rogue next week.
But if you want to hear the whole press conference...
That's right. Head to our YouTube channel, Skywalking Through Neverland on YouTube, and you can see the whole press conference right there.
We got it from beginning to end.
Welcome, foolish mortals, to the Haunted Mansion.
And now let's kick off our month-long salute to Halloween with Jeff Baham.
Be our guest, be our guest, put our podcast to the test. Gather round the microphone and we will do the rest.
Kicking off our month-long tribute to Halloween, we have Jeffrey Baham, the author of the unauthorized story of Walt Disney's Haunted Mansion, here with us now.
His passion for the Haunted Mansion doesn't end there. Jeff also runs doombuggies.com, a website that the Disney company itself has turned to for research and promotion. And he's also one of the hosts of Mousetalgia, a Disney podcast that also hosted a panel on the podcast stage at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim.
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Well,
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on to Skywalking Through Neverland, and I know it's early, but happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Yeah, no, it's always a good time to celebrate Halloween, right?
You know what? As soon as Disney puts up its Halloween decorations, it's fair game.
That's right. Well, as far as I'm concerned, as soon as Michael's puts up their Halloween decorations, which is usually July.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, or if you want to go to Target, their stuff is up around Mother's Day. Now, Jeff, tell us all about yourself and your Disney fandom and all your accomplishments.
Wow. Well, let's see. I grew up a Disney fan. My parents grew up in LA, and they we'd go back with once or twice a year for them to visit their friends down there, and they would always take us and their friends' kids and drop us off at Disneyland. So I grew up going to Disneyland as far back as I can remember. Once or twice a year, just I don't know what I was, 6, 7, 9 years old, just wandering the park with, the four of us kids, just kind of wandering around with a book of tickets and.
Wow. That's a time frame.
And yeah, and so we, and our parents would go to Knott's and have their chicken dinner, and then they'd come pick us up around midnight. So yeah,
Wow.
I've always had kind of a love of the parks, and my parents would supply my sister and I with Disneyland records. Well, we had probably most of them, but I definitely remember the Haunted Mansion record and the Haunted House record that Disneyland Records put out. I always kind of tended towards that. I would trace the skeleton pictures in Time Life books. And, I was always kind of into the spooky side of things as a kid. So that kind of carried through with my Disney interests too. But, I served a term on the Disneyland Creative Advisory Council. I don't know if that means a whole lot to many people, but it was a cool thing for me. It kind of happened in around, I don't know, somewhere around 2000. I think it was around 2003. And that kind of helped focus my Disney energy on just learning more about Disneyland.
The Disney Advisory Council?
It was kind of like a focus group, like a supercharged focus group, essentially.
Wow.
So they would, for a year, you apply to this, and if you got accepted, you'd be part of it for a year. And I think we met quarterly. And you'd spend a day at Disneyland, and they'd present us with all kinds of future plans and new merchandise and new food and just everything they were kind of planning for the next quarter. And we would just basically talk about it and dissect it and give them feedback, and it was a pretty cool experience.
Wow. Yeah, it does. Sign me up for that.
Yeah. Are you still part of this?
No. It's well, it was a 1-year thing. You could do it for a year, and then they only did it, I think, for 3 or 4, maybe 5 years. They don't do it anymore. And to be honest, even when I was doing it, anyone can see the value of a focus group, right? But I just didn't really, they had a lot of strange rules. Like, they were showing us all kinds of amazing things. And a lot of it wasn't really that I could tell for feedback. It was just kind of to present, like, here's the new stuff that's coming up. But we were not allowed to talk about, in fact, someone even got kicked off because they had, I don't remember. I don't think there was Twitter back then. What happened in 2003? Something happened online. They probably posted to a news group or something. Yeah, or they MySpaced it or something, and someone got kicked off. So they really were serious about, you can't talk about this, and yet it seemed like they were just kind of presenting us with information for no good purpose. So I'm a little bit still kind of flummoxed about how it all worked for them. But it was great for us because they wined and dined us and gave us gifts and showed us everything, and we were walking all over the place behind the scenes, and we went up to Walt's apartment, and we had breakfast in the Hungry Bear and did all kinds of cool stuff. Wow. But that was one of the things that kind of focused my energy a little bit on Disneyland. So eventually I would go to start Mousetalgia, a Disneyland podcast.
At what point did you write your book, The Unauthorized Story of Walt Disney's Haunted Mansion?
That's a good question. So I started this website called doombuggies.com back even before. It was, I think, 1997. So it's been almost 18 years, right? 17, 18 years. Yeah. So Halloween of 1997, I started this back in the olden days of the internet when people were just kind of talking to each other on news groups and Usenet. And I formed this website, and everyone was making their GeoCities websites back then, right? And most of them were websites about your favorite band or your pet or something like that. And I just chose the Haunted Mansion because I was kind of a Disney nerd by then, and this was before the Creative Advisory Council. So I guess I did always have some Disney nerd in me. I don't know where it came from. They opened a Disney store around here back in the late 80s, and I was a big, that was when the Disney store first opened. It was really cool. They used to sell animation art and lots of books, and it was kind of more collector friendly than it is now. Now it's more clothes and toys. But so that kind of also, gave me a place where I could always get the latest Disney books and Disney artwork. And so anyway, I started the doombuggies.com website in 1997, and then by 2003, Disney started planning a Haunted Mansion movie, with Eddie Murphy in it.
Right.
And they came to Doombuggies, and they kind of, asked around a little bit about would we be interested in some kind of grassroots work with them, and we said sure. So we worked with Disney on promoting their movie. That was a fun year.
I bet. Yeah. How did you promote?
Well, they did lots of stuff with us. One was literal website stuff. So they published some content. They had their own website, but they also had Doombuggies is also hauntedmansion.com. So they knew people would be hearing about the movie and going to hauntedmansion.com. So they were very kind, not that they could have taken it away, but they never even, went there.
It's Disney. They could have taken it away.
But they were very interested in, cross like giving us little exclusive things that people could only find on the website. So we did some of that kind of thing. We went to the sets and reported on
Really?
this thing. Yeah, they took us out. We had a tour with Don Hahn and Rob Minkoff, and they just walked us around and kind of showed us everything and got to meet a lot of the producers and that kind of thing. So just the kind of thing you would expect, for a movie promotion. And then finally, near the release, they had screenings across the country. So we were one of the distribution hubs for free ticket, for screenings before, the week before the film came out. So, yeah, I think we gave away a lot of tickets, maybe 500 tickets to theaters all across the country.
Now, didn't they go to you also for some resources?
Doom Buggies, it's been around a long time, so people that work for Disney in various capacities have kind of learned when you have to do something related to the Haunted Mansion, it's a little bit easier just to go to the Doom Buggies guy and say, hey, do you have a copy of this, than it is to try to go through the process of, getting into the resource library and all that kind of stuff officially. So, there's a lot of times where I've given people images or fonts or, just research, that kind of thing. I guess you could say officially, I helped them with some of the artwork for their 40th, or what year is this? 46? I think it's the 40th anniversary. They released a new record or CD that went with the Haunted Mansion. It had sound effects and things, and I got my name listed in that. So that's kind of officially what I did with Disney. But yeah, but for years, just, when mostly it's been affiliated companies. Like TDK was doing a video game of the Haunted Mansion with the movie, and they worked with Doom Buggies a lot because it was easier than working with Disney to get the stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that kind of thing happens frequently.
So it sounds like you've been a Haunted Mansion fan since you were a kid and having a general interest in the macabre. So did that help your interest later on as an adult?
Well, yeah, I think so. When I was in high school and college, I would put on haunted houses. I always had the Disney mindset, though. I'm not a brave person in terms of haunted houses. Like, I don't want to walk through haunted houses. I don't want to do any of this new interactive
No
type
Walking
stuff.
Dead haunted houses for you?
When Sarah and I go to those not scary farms, I always make her go first.
Yeah. No, none of that. That's not for me. I mean, I love to make them. And so, Young Life haunted houses were a big thing when I was a kid, in the 80s. And so with my youth group, I had a buddy and we would put on these haunted houses. And we eventually did a couple in strip malls. Like, we got kind of into it, but we always had that kind of Disney sensibility in the back of our head. So we never had like disgusting, gross things. It was always more special effects and kind of cool stuff. Right. So yeah, I've always been kind of drawn in that direction, I guess you could say, and it kind of continues till today.
So in your book, do you also cover the Haunted Mansion from all the Disney theme parks?
Well, yeah. So the book I wrote, The Unauthorized Story of the Haunted Mansion, it's more or less about the history of the making of the Haunted Mansion. And that's one story for all the parks, essentially, because they designed the Haunted Mansion originally for Disneyland, but then they recognized by the time, it got around to production, they recognized there's going to be this Walt Disney World Magic Kingdom park, so we might as well double up on the making stuff. So all the production was just doubled, and they stored that for a couple of years until they needed to put it into Disney World. So essentially the story is the same for Disneyland and Disney World. Now, Tokyo Disneyland, they specifically tried to mirror Disney World on purpose, so there wasn't really a lot of change to any of the design of the Haunted Mansion for Tokyo. So, the Haunted Mansion itself has a pretty consistent history, like a one history that doesn't alter too much for the various attractions, at least for their development and initial design. Now, since then, things have gotten a little different. In Disney World, different teams went on to create more interactive stuff in the last 10 years, for that Haunted Mansion. And Disneyland's team has gone a slightly different direction, and we have the Hatbox Ghost now, and there's kind of a new philosophy. So there's a little bit of a split there, as far as how the attractions have been run since their debut. But at least the history and up to the debut, it's a pretty consistent story.
How did you do your research on the Haunted Mansion? Did you speak to the Imagineers? Did you do a lot of stuff on the internet? Did you speak to the people who were behind the designs?
Yeah, all of that. Well, most of the stuff that's on the internet originally came from doommovies.com. Now, but yeah, I mean, a lot of that. I've had the privilege to speak to many Disney, luminaries over the years. And so the book essentially, I've written articles for a long time. People would contact me and say, hey, we want to do a thing about the Haunted Mansion. Can you write a little piece? And I'd say, sure. And so I'd written all these little things. And like about 10 years ago, or maybe more than that, I wrote a kind of a significant piece for Haunted Attraction magazine about the Haunted Mansion. And that kind of formed like a little seed. And I thought, this is a good starting point. And someone needs to write this book because Disney has their official Haunted Mansion book, which they just released a new 3rd edition of it, which is really great, by the way. I really recommend that book because it has all the vast resources of Disney at its disposal. So it's a gorgeous picture book with things that you can't see anywhere other than in this book. It's by Jason Sorrell, who used to be an Imagineer, and he works for Universal now, but he still is, going to be he's the author of this book, and he's written many Disney books, and he still is, working on it, and hope maybe they'll have a 4th edition someday. I don't know, but it must sell okay for them to keep putting out new editions. But that book doesn't really, and it can't really get too much into the history because no one would want. It's not really a mass appeal type of a story. You know what I mean? It's more of a Disney nerd kind of a story.
The history of it, really?
Well, I mean, not in well. The Disneyland book covers the history of it. So if you can cover it in 10 pages, and just give people the outline. Right. That's great. But my book is a little bit more. There's very few pictures and a lot of words, so it's a lot more involved. And the other thing is, so to answer your question a little more directly, yeah, I interviewed I've talked to Rolly Crump and Tony Baxter and Alice Davis and, lots of the people that have memories specifically of Walt Disney or working with the Imagineers. Tony Baxter worked with, his mentor was Claude Coates, who was directly involved with the Haunted Mansion. So, all these people have interesting stories and a lot of them conflict a little bit. So, and just Disney isn't going to write a book about how everyone was fighting, if you know what I mean. So
that's where you step in.
Yeah. So my book is a little not so shy about kind of telling you what really happened. It was a hard time when the Haunted Mansion was created. Walt Disney died right in the middle there. And after Walt Disney passed away, Imagineering kind of had to find their footing. And there were a lot of high-powered guys there, and Walt would always just kind of say, well, yes or no. Yes, we're going to do this, or no, let's try something else. But without him there, there were a lot of people of sort of equal standing, and it was kind of tricky to figure out, well, who gets to say, how it's going to be.
Right, there was no Vader to make them.
Yeah, exactly. And, Mark Davis has more than once over the years, when he was still alive, talking about the Haunted Mansion, he would say, yeah, we had too many cooks in the kitchen. And it was, it was kind of hard to discern what was going to happen. Now, it ended up, Mark Davis kind of ruled the day at the end of the day, because a lot of the Haunted Mansion has his gags and his ideas and his vision as it was finally developed. And even then, there were times when he wasn't so thrilled with some of the things that came out of the Haunted Mansion. So, a lot of compromise was made, and then we step forward 40 years, and it's interesting how such a fandom has grown around this attraction, because I don't know that any of the people designing it would have really felt like this is the, optimum solution. It was kind of a compromise solution in some ways. And so it's kind of an interesting story, how they kind of came from, losing Walt's leadership. Although Walt was, kind of detached from the Disneyland and the Haunted Mansion anyways, by the time they were putting it together, it took them years and years. Walt, he kept wanting this haunted house in his park, and he kept working on it from the 50s, early 50s, before Disneyland even was a thing. He was talking about a haunted house. Wow. And then, because he was going to put it in his little Mickey Mouse park that was going to be with his studio in Burbank. They were going to build a little kind of a amusement park adjacent to the studio. And, even back then he was thinking of a haunted house.
Wow.
It seems so un-Walt to have a haunted house.
Well, it's interesting. He was very interested in themed entertainment, and he grew up going to all these places in Chicago and, the Midwest. And as a real little kid, he went to this one park that had think it was called Electric City, and it had trains and it had a Tunnel of Love, which was kind of the old style spook house. A Tunnel of Love was like a boat ride or a dark ride, and they would be kind of creepy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so he kind of knew in his head a part, an amusement park kind of has that thing in it, that kind of creepy thing. And some of the parks he went to back in the, I don't know when this would have been, maybe the 20s, would have, maybe even the teens, would have fortune tellers and that kind of thing associated with them. So, that kind of was in his history with amusement parks. In my book, I even tell a story about how when he was young and working in Kansas City, one of the guys he kind of was associated with had a relative that was in a house that was rumored to be haunted in Kansas City. So it's possible that he kind of had even kind of a knowledge of this haunted house back from when he was, just to say that he may have had the idea that, every kind of main street or little community has their haunted house out in the hill on the corner. So Disneyland also should have that haunted house out in the hill in the corner.
Right.
So there's a lot of, elements put together in Walt's history that can explain, he was definitely not afraid of drama. Most of his dark rides have, it's kind of the nature of a dark ride to be kind of a little scary and a little dramatic. They also had Snow White's Scary Adventure, which was also kind of a spook house.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Since you've talked with all of these Imagineers, what would you say is your favorite, Imagineer story about the Haunted Mansion?
Wow. That's a good question. Well, I've heard Rolly Crump talk a lot of times about his time with the Haunted Mansion. He kind of was in there in the middle. First Walt had a fellow named Ken Anderson working on this big tour he was going to have, like a Winchester Mystery House type tour. People were going to, come to tour through this big haunted house that he had brought to Disneyland and kind of planted there, and things were going to happen, and you're going to walk through it. That's kind of what he had in mind. So for years for at least a couple of years, he had this gentleman named Ken Anderson working on that. And then after that just didn't really come together, he had Rolly Crump and Yale Gracie working on just special effects and kind of spooky things that they might put into a haunted house. And I kind of like those stories because it's kind of this transition point where Walt's kind of thinking, well, what are we going to do here? It's not really coming together with the walking tour. And he still kind of had some ideas like, well, maybe we can make the scenes a little bit spookier or a little bit more amazing, so he had his head Illusioneer, Yale Gracie, working on these things, trying to come up with some kind of amazing scenes, that no one has ever seen before, something that people haven't ever seen. And so Yale had Rolly Crump working with him, who really was only a 20-year-old then, young guy, working with all these older guys and Walt. So he was kind of Walt hired him because he was an artist. He was a kinetic artist, Rolly Crump, and he had done these weird sculptures and things that Walt really liked. But also he was kind of a helper to Yale Gracie, who was the older guy. So Rolly has these interesting stories of kind of, learning from Yale, but also trying to understand Walt Disney and figure him out. So, I guess one of my favorite stories is Rolly Crump's story about how he decided to go off on his own and design all these just crazy, weird things that might go into the Haunted Mansion. He thought everyone else was working a little too much in the Halloween vein, witches and ghosts and Dracula and, that kind of thing. And he thought it should be surreal. So he kind of was making like things that were chairs that had human body parts or, lots of things that had human features, but they were inanimate objects and things like that. And he kind of came up with all, plant people or a big wax candle man and just these weird things, that he thought could be in this haunted house. And so his story is that none of the other Imagineers really took to this. And, you kind of keep in mind, he was like a 20-something-year-old and Mark Davis and Yale Gracie, all these other guys are, peers with Walt. And so there was definitely a generation gap there. And Rolly Crump was kind of, Walt had kind of taken to Rolly because for whatever reason, I think Walt did that now and then, took to different people. And so it's an interesting story about how he came up with this stuff, and none of the other Imagineers really liked it. And then they had a meeting one day, and Walt saw all this stuff because they showed Walt. From what I understand, it was like a long meeting, like a 3 or 4 hour, like a status meeting of the Haunted Mansion, and so all the other Imagineers were presenting, the latest scenes and the latest information, and it went on and on and on. And Rolly was stuck in the corner because that's where they put him because they didn't want to embarrass themselves with his crazy wax candle man and plant man. You know what I mean? So they kind of said, just go back there. And Walt saw him over there, and Walt knew Rolly. He liked Rolly. So he said, what's Rolly got going on? So Rolly said, oh, come over and I'll show you. And he demonstrated all this stuff. And Walt Disney kind of said, well, okay, so what are we going to do with all this? And Rolly said, well, I don't know. And everyone kind of looked at him like, well, we told you. So, and so Walt kind of said, I think he kind of cussed and left. Like he kind of was frustrated. So then Rolly, this is according to Rolly. So the next day he comes into work early, and there's Walt Disney like in his rumpled clothes, as if possibly he hadn't even gone home, waiting for him in Rolly's office. And Rolly got there and he said, "Yikes!" And Walt said, "I've been up all night thinking about this stuff, and I figured it out. We're going to have this ancillary museum of the weird. So we're going to take all your stuff and just make this kind of museum that goes along with the Haunted Mansion. That's what we'll do with all this stuff." So I kind of like that story because it just kind of shows, it's a little insight into a lot of things, like the conflicts the Imagineers had with each other and Walt Disney trying to kind of figure out a solution, and Rolly Crump himself. And it's just an interesting side tour in the story of the development of the Haunted Mansion. So, but unfortunately, Walt passed away, and that never happened. And then Rolly got kind of, once Walt passed away, Rolly's kind of days were, at least in terms of being Walt's favorite, were not, well, obviously gone. So he kind of got sent into a different role, and so he feels like he kind of got pushed aside a little bit when Walt passed away. So,
boy, I'm sure after talking with all these Imagineers for so long, maybe one or two let something slip that they shouldn't have, and you put it in your book. And is there something that you put in your book that Disney wasn't too crazy about?
Oh, I don't know what Disney thinks of my book. It says right on the title, like I specifically called it the unauthorized story of Walt Disney's Haunted Mansion, so that no one could, have any confusion about that. Mm-hmm. So I haven't. I mean, I know a lot of employees that have read it, but there's no official word from Disney about it. Mm-hmm. Honestly, a lot of these people, there's no stories. It's not like I snuck some kind of sneaky story out of someone and put it in there. Like there are no stories in my book that haven't been said again and again. So
it's not like a tabloid book.
No. It's the actual history, and it's just that, Disney even, and today, it's a different Disney than it was 10 years ago. Today, with the internet, and Disney is a lot more transparent, and they understand. A good example is this Disney documentary that PBS just put together.
Oh, isn't that awesome?
Yeah, and the Walt Disney studio gave them full access and agreed to not having any input, or they're going to do what they're going to do, and and that's not something that would have happened 10 years ago. So right. They kind of are more along that line of how they deal with their own history, which is good. Right. So, I don't think anyone would have any problem with anything in my book. They might not put it into a book because it takes, if you're not a Disney history nerd, you could say I'm taking away from the focus, which is the attraction itself, by focusing on the personalities of the people that created it. Or if you're Disney, you could say that. You know what I mean? So, and here's the evidence. Like their book came out, and their book and my book side by side. I think they work great together because Jason's book, you can look at it and you can see everything illustrated for you. And he by necessity has to only put the bare bones of the history because there's just not enough room in that book for words because there's so many beautiful pictures. So I mean, he has he has a full narrative in there, but it's nothing like as long as my book. And so my book doesn't have as many pictures, but it kind of fills in the stories that are not really, that might be slightly alluded to in his book, but aren't really covered, if you know what I mean.
Right. Now, I'm sure you've been on the Haunted Mansion a couple dozen times by now, right?
Yeah, a couple dozen times.
What is your favorite part of the attraction? The part that gets you excited whenever you pass by?
Well, it does change. I'll say that. I guess you could say I don't really have a favorite, but at the moment, I really like, besides really loving the new Hatbox Ghost, which is amazing, but I'll take that off the table. So I think I like the way that you transition through that ballroom because it's such an amazing, grand scene. Like you come out of Madame Leota, and there had been this kind of interesting special effect, and that's really the first time in the seance scene there that you really see, a character and some kind of magical effects happening. But then suddenly you're in front of the ballroom and there's all these ghosts dancing and you can see right through them, and it's just a big grand view, and there's so many different characters to look at. I think that's probably my favorite moment in the Haunted Mansion, when you just kind of turn around and all of a sudden you're in this big ballroom with this crazy music. And
I know I always want the ride to slow down right there.
Or break down.
Yeah, so you can stop and look at everything. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Totally.
that Madame Leota scene has always aggravated me because I can never figure out how it's done. And then I read that excerpt from your book. It's like, you know what? I never would have thought of that. I don't want to spoil it for anyone because I want them to read your book and really put it into perspective. So I don't want to just blurt it out. But
because in your book you go into how they actually create these effects in the mansion.
Yeah. So that's another big difference between my book and the Disney book. They won't tell you exactly how they do anything, but of course they won't, and I wouldn't expect a book like that too.
Which I think that's one of those things where I wouldn't want to spoil it for anyone, especially myself.
Right, but I know there's people like my dad, an engineer, like he would love your book about how these effects work.
Even though I don't want to spoil it, I still read that excerpt from your book because I every time I'd pass by Madame Leota, it's like, how does this work?
Well, and the thing about the Haunted Mansion, there is no, and again, I'll take the Hatbox Ghost off the table because they actually came out with a fascinating kind of mechanical way to do this new special effect. But in general, there's no real it's not like a trade secret or anything. You know what I mean? Like the effects they use in there are kind of stage magic type things. And in fact, a lot of them are like 19th century type, especially the ballroom we just talked about. The main effect with all the ghosts is something that was developed in the 19th century. So it's not like, something that Universal might get a hold of if they read my book or anything like that. So, so I felt like, well, it makes it a little more interesting in the sense that when people kind of can see the things they put in a sense, when you can see how simple some of these things really are, it kind of can give you a better appreciation. Now it's kind of changed a little bit. Like the nuts and bolts of the Haunted Mansion are still these simple things, but they've put some more reliable technology in place. Like, for instance, they used to just project film strips over and over and over all day long, for these projection things. Now they use digital, projection. So that's high technology, but the essence of it just being a projection onto a static form is the same.
Yeah, that's one of those things we've talked about numerous times here on Skywalking Through Neverland, the difference between the practical effects versus the now digital effects that you see a lot at Universal, whereas Disney is transitioning very slowly into the digital effect, where I want it to be all the Disney type of animatronics.
Yeah.
That says Disney, not the digital projections.
Yeah. Well, and then the interesting thing is, and I've been complaining about that for a couple of years on Mousetalgia. We all have, all its old cranky Disney. Why do they change everything? But the honest truth is, with Peter Pan, especially with Alice in Wonderland a couple of years ago, when they redid that, I felt like they finally got this perfect blend of leaving the old school things alone, but using technology to do things that they just couldn't really do, and it all mixes perfectly. Like I talk a lot about this one little part where there's dew dripping from the leaves that's projected there, but they could never have had like some way to make dew dripping off. You know what I mean?
Right.
The leaves in the old Dark Ride. So now they have the best of the old Dark Ride and this subtle new technology that's not like a big blatant, animated Alice in Wonderland running through the place. You know what I mean? So I feel like they are doing a pretty good job in some sense of kind of finding that fine finesse line of putting digital and analog together. Now it'll be interesting to see what happens with Star Wars Land, of course, because who knows? If
that's going to be all digital.
If the whole thing is a big movie, then
okay,
we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. With the Hatbox Ghost, I think they did that very well with the digital projection.
Yeah,
and I was almost scared to go and see this new part of the attraction that I love so much, because I was just so afraid that it wasn't going to blend well. But being the kind of ethereal effect, they did it very, very well.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, I was just talking to the Imagineer that that was in charge of the special effect for that a couple days ago, and he told me, we were looking back, kind of, I was asking him, look back at the past 5 months, and how do you feel about everything? And he said they very specifically wanted it to not be like an interactive thing or a very digital thing. They wanted it to move like the other animatronics move, and they wanted it to, and he said, so the head they used, they took the original mold that they had from back in the 60s, and they scanned it to make a new one. But he said you could even still see the fingerprints of Blaine Gibson on that thing, like where he was sculpting it with his hands, so, and they kept all that detail. You can't tell in the dark, but the point being, they really wanted to respect the history of what this thing was and make it look like in 1969 this guy could have been there with everyone else. Now, the magical trick they do maybe couldn't have been, well, and I think even the way they put together the trick, I think even that could have possibly happened in 1969 if they had kind of put it together. So he was just trying to say, they really wanted to honor what had happened, before, when they brought back this thing, because it has such a long mythology, and people have just talked about it for so long, and how do you live up to something like that?
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear you say that they really put thought into it, into making sure that it integrated this digital effect, integrated with the animatronics with the rest of the ride.
Yeah, absolutely. And the digital part, there is some digital, there's a little, I think perhaps once his head kind of disappears and there's a little fluttery, some magical ghosty thing that kind of has a digital feel to it. But, the digital projection, even in 1969, they would have just used a lantern and projected it. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's possible this thing could have really been there in 1969. And it's such a difference from Walt Disney World, what they did 10 years ago when they revamped their Haunted Mansion and put the digital hitchhiking ghosts in the end, and made their big entrance queue with all the interaction and interactivity. He didn't specifically say this, and I wouldn't expect anyone at Disney to talk negative about anyone else, but there is a big difference between what the team in Orlando did with that Haunted Mansion when they were going digital and interactive, and what Disneyland just did with the Hatbox Ghost. Like, two entirely different philosophies.
Have you ever been given the chance to walk the Haunted Mansion with the lights on?
Chance, yes. Have I done it? No. And I'm I kick myself. Well, no, not good for me. I mean, I would like to do that, because what is there left for me to know? I mean, I've seen a lot of pictures of what's back there. The Haunted Mansion is it's one of those early attractions that they built like a movie set, a lot like a movie set. So when the lights are on, and the Doom Buggy track is off the ground a good 4 or 5 feet. So there's like these big plywood walls that kind of hang in the air, so to speak, because they end with the Doom Buggy track. But then because the Doom Buggy itself is like a shell, and the big mechanical beast that moves it along hangs under the ground, and it's I don't know, 2 or 3 feet deep in mechanics to keep these things working. They're real workhorse machines. So it's interesting, so they don't do a lot of that anymore, because I guess they don't want people to see that it's really plywood and paste, and I mean, but they're put together well, like they last, but they're built like these strong movie sets. But there have been lots of, back in the 90s and 80s, there were opportunities to have dinners in the Haunted Mansion, and they take you on a walking tour, or various entertainment groups would get a chance to take a tour of the Haunted Mansion, and they'd walk through the graveyard and stuff like that.
With the lights on?
Yeah. Just kind of, here's what we have, this is what's happening here. Kind of, they kind of would have to do that with the lights on to keep everyone safe. But it's not really something they'll, at least philosophically these days, none of the Disney attractions kind of do that kind of thing anymore. Walk you through the magic, so to speak.
It's almost like Star Wars spoilers. You really want to peek at what Luke Skywalker looks like, but once you do, all the magic will be ruined. You want to wait until that golden moment when you're sitting down in the theater and you first see Luke.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing here. Once you see with the lights on, then you go through the ride again. It's like, I know.
Right.
There's a big mechanical arm over here, and there's a pulley and a lever system right over here. And
Yeah. You're right. There's no going back from that. So it just is philosophically where you're at with your Disney fandom. I got walked off at Indiana Jones once. We were right underneath the Rolling Stone. The Rolling Stone. The Rolling Stone.
That's a great concert, isn't it?
It was, yeah. And then they turn on the lights and that room is storage. There were like mops and boxes like off to the side, the big black room that you're kind of in when the rock is rolling in top of you. And that was a little bit disconcerting, to think, well, I guess that's a good use of space because this is a big black room, but
yeah.
Wow.
It's just interesting, so there's reasons they probably don't always want to give people tours of things that are not supposed to be seen. But as far as the Haunted Mansion is concerned, I would have loved to do that. And I could have taken some of these tours, and I always thought, well, the next time one comes up, but then they don't really do that anymore as a company philosophy. So chances are that opportunity won't come up anytime soon.
I think you just said it perfectly when you said there's no going back. Once you see it with the lights on, that's all you're ever going to see.
Yeah, well, I do always wonder, I wonder what's in the corner here when I stop under the rock in Indiana Jones, So yeah, it's true.
Nice. Well, thanks so much, Jeff. You know what? How can people find your book and you on social media?
Oh, yeah. Well, doombuggies.com has been around for 18 years. You can find that website at doombuggies.com, and it's all about the Haunted Mansion, everything you could ever want to know. You can get my book at doombuggies.com/book, but it's on Amazon. You can just search for Jeff Baham or unofficial or unauthorized story or whatever, however you want to type it in. But it's on Amazon. It's called The Unauthorized Story of Walt Disney's Haunted Mansion. It's published by Theme Park Press, and also there's little excerpts. So if you want to kind of read a little bit before you actually dive in. If you go to themeparkpress.com, you can find my book and read a little bit more about it and read an excerpt and decide if it's right for you.
They're really fun excerpts, and we should mention that I love your name, Jeff Baham, but it is spelled Baham. Just for listeners.
Yeah,
to know.
Baham. It's kind of Welsh, like Bam, Bam. Yeah, my kids I teach high schoolers, and they love to Bam. It's like a firecracker in New Orleans. Bam.
Totally. No, I get comic book references when I hear your name. It's fun.
I just think of the Flintstones.
Yeah. Well,
Bam Bam.
Yeah.
That's totally funny that you'd say that, because all growing up from, I would say, 2nd grade through 5th grade, I was Bam Bam, and I had a little girl lived around the corner from me, and we would walk to school together, and she got the brunt of being called Pebbles for no good reason other than I got called Bam Bam.
Guilty by association.
Exactly. Yeah. So I grew up with that, so that's nothing new.
All right, Jeff. Well, thank you very much for all those really fun stories.
Absolutely.
And I'm never going to look at the Haunted Mansion the same way again.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that's a good thing.
All right, Jeff. Well, once again, happy Halloween.
Thanks for having me on. Happy Halloween.
Hurry back. Hurry back.
Shout-outs, Skywalker shout-outs. Which Skywalkers get props from here in Neverland? Who was tweeted out? Shout-out. Who was photobombed? Shout-out. Who was shared a post? Shout-out.
Well, I want to give a shout out to the Diz Geek Podcast, because while I was listening last week, randomly they mentioned us, and it was really cute. You know how Richard and I always say,
Skywalking through Neverland.
All together like that? Well, they decided to give us a little shout out like that.
An homage, if you will.
Yes.
Jedi Training Academy is coming. Hey, let's all say it like Skywalking through Neverland. Are you ready? On 3, right. 2, 1. Jedi Training Academy.
It's always fun when you get those nods for something that you do that you don't even realize that you're doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Even when we're in normal conversations with people out there, whenever we say Skywalking through Neverland, we got to say it together.
And so people, I guess that's our trademark, Richard. All right. Well, I want to play a few anniversary messages that were, unfortunately, we couldn't put it on our last episode. So
unfortunately, we didn't get them in time to play on our last episode. So we'll play them now.
Absolutely.
First up is Michael and Bruce from the Cloud City Casino podcast.
This is Bruce and Michael. of Cloud City Casino.
And we wanted to congratulate Skywalking Through Neverland on 2 years of magical podcasting.
1, 2, 3.
Neverland on Alderaan.
One more time.
Neverland on Alderaan.
Thanks so much, guys. We really appreciate that coming from you.
And now we're going to hear from the Peralta family. Rick was on our show a couple of weeks ago, who is in the group liningup.net.
Lining up for The Force Awakens. And then, of course, his daughter, Eliza, is the 7-year-old who Dave Filoni whispered the secret of who is the voice of Chopper.
So now here is the Peralta family.
Hello, this is Rick.
And Lisa.
And Eliza.
And we're the Peralta family. And we just had a really great memory of when our daughter, Eliza, was a guest on your show.
It was fun meeting you. It felt like I was making new friends. And I saw you there at the Star Wars celebration in BB-8, and I love BB-8.
And she had a blast getting a chance to share her story of when she got a chance to talk to Dave Filoni, and he gave her his secret.
Who's the voice of Chopper?
I can't tell you!
And she still hasn't given it up. I don't know if we'll ever find out, unless maybe Dave or maybe Kanan lets her share it. So thank you so much for letting us be guests on your show, and thank you for letting me share a little bit about the lineup experience that's building up here again for Force Awakens. And from all the Peraltas here, we just like to say thank you and happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
She still won't give that up.
No.
She still won't give up that secret.
I can't tell you. Oh, so cute.
Now, this next one comes in from David and Luann Manderville, who wrote in a happy anniversary email. They write, hey, you guys. They wrote, hey.
I know, it's great.
I love that. My deepest apologies for not being able to send a timely anniversary message to you two. Life got in the way shortly after you sent your request for an anniversary message, and we didn't get a chance to do anything.
Dude, we understand that.
Yeah, and how? Well, late as it may be, Luann and I want to wish the two of you happy anniversary for Skywalking Through Neverland. That was even unplanned, too. Love the show, and we can't wait to see you guys in April for the marathon weekend.
Force, love, and pixie dust. David and Luann Manderville. All right, I'm totally stealing that. That's awesome.
Love it, yeah. Okay, that now belongs to us. Thanks once again to David and Luann. And
to the Mandervilles.
To the Mandervillians, I can't help but say.
I know, it's awesome.
And to the Peralta.
We can't wait to see you too.
Yeah, for the Dark Side Marathon.
Yeah.
Which we are now training for, thanks to my sweetie wife, Sarah. And now, it's time for Skywalker of the Week.
Tiffany Elliott.
Well, we met so many people at Disneyland's 60th anniversary, and Tiffany was one of them. And she looked great in her 50s garb.
Yeah, she did. And once again, we want to thank Rob Dellinger, the John Williams of podcasting, and for every week giving us a new Skywalker of the Week jingle.
Yeah, so great.
Now, to become a Skywalker of the Week.
Oh, yes. Well, what you have to do is tweet about the show or share a Facebook post of the show and just say what you think of the show. We're making you jump through a few more hoops, Skywalkers. And also, we've got some meetups coming up. And
if you meet us at these meetups, you'll get one of our special BB-8 buttons.
That's right.
That my sweetie wife designed.
And you'll also be entered to win the Skywalker of the Week jingle, too. That is, if you haven't already got one. We've got quite a few Skywalkers of the Week now.
It's a very tight-knit club, which at some point, we're going to do a button or a shirt.
Oh, yeah.
I was the Skywalker of the Week.
Oh, just like I am the rebel spy.
Yes. Okay. Ideas are a brewing.
Yes.
And now, let's hear from Margaret Kerry as she dispenses wisdom and knowledge and advice on her segment, Ask Tink.
Hello, Skywalkers. This is Margaret Kerry, the official fairy podmother on Skywalking Through Neverland. Some of you may even know me as the animator's reference model for Tinkerbell in Walt Disney's Peter Pan. I'm here to give advice, wisdom, and to spread by faith, trust, and pixie dust. Or if you just ask me a question about my career or anything from Tinkerbell's point of view, again, I'm here for you. Let's start things off today with a couple of questions from Wendy Cooper. Wendy asks, who was your movie idol growing up? That is hard for me to say because each time that I would work on a motion picture, the last person that I worked with became my idol because I don't think I ever worked with anybody that I was unhappy with. They were just dear. Starting out when I was 4 years old, it was Darla Hood and our Gang comedies. This little lady belted out a song like you cannot believe, and I knew right then and there that I would never be able to sing, and I never have. But she was just absolutely adorable. The next one was Eleanor Powell, who had all of us kids, and she threw a party for us. She couldn't have been sweeter. And then you went on to Joan Fontaine for Rebecca. Then I did a movie with Elizabeth Taylor where I doubled her on many of the different shots. So, you saw me walking away from the camera, and I thought she was absolutely adorable. She used to call and say, Mummy, I'm through, I'm coming. And her mommy would say, oh, Elizabeth, darling, I'm over here. She said, coming, Mummy, dear. And no, but she was very sweet. And of course, she had School Alone. But the one who impressed me was Angela Lansbury. She was about 18, and this was the first movie, I think, that she did for MGM. Oh, what a professional. She was wonderful. And then it went on from there. Of course, Veronica Lake. Anybody who could be a size 2 and have blonde hair drip down over your face just couldn't be any greater than that. And it just went on and on and on. Charlie Ruggles was my idol, working with him for 5 years. So that's a hard question to answer, dear heart. I'm sure, Wendy, you have a particular one that you zoom in on, but I'll bet it changes. I'll betcha something new comes up. And your other question is, what type of music do you enjoy? Well, I am a jazz fan. I love swing music. I love easy music. I love musical concerts. I'm not really crazy about opera. I don't speak all those different languages. I'll listen to it. But anything where a singer is screaming into the microphone and I can't tell what he or she is saying without a program is not one of my favorites. But Ray Charles, I love that kind of music. And Toots Camarada, his easy listening music. That's the kind of music I love. And so thank you for asking. I think that's peachy keen that somebody cares. Okay, next question. We have a question from Adam Medina from Los Angeles, my hometown. Dear Tinkerbell, our daughter Aurora wants to know, who is your favorite Disney princess? Aurora, I can't tell you. Oh, that wouldn't be fair. Because I see them all the time. And if somebody said, I heard that you like her better than you like me, I would just be devastated. And so I love them all just the same. Of course, I love Tinkerbell the most, you understand. And they understand that. So, but thank you for asking. And it's sort of an awkward question. It's sort of like asking me, who am I going to vote for? And all I can say is, I'm a middle-of-the-road extremist, so you never know who I'm going to vote for, and I'm not going to tell. Thank you, Adam, for that question. And our final question comes all the way from Australia. Adam P. O'Brien it is, from the Jogcast Radio Network, asks, if you could take one piece of the Jedi philosophy, and use it daily in your life, to make you a better person, quite a question, what would it be and why? Oh, wait a minute. I think I found the right one. Size matters not. I'm 5'2". Tinkerbell is 3.5 inches. I think I'll take the size matters not. Absolutely. Well, Skywalkers, that's all the Tink time we have today. And I would like to thank Wendy Cooper, Adam Medina, and Adam O'Brien for sending in their questions and their concerns. If you would like to spread some faith, trust, and pixie dust, send your questions to share, like sharing, SHARE. Okay, send it to share@skywalkingthrough-neverland.com. Bye now.
Skywalking through classic Marvel. Skywalking through classic Marvel comics.
When we left off with our classic Marvel Star Wars comics segment, where we look at each issue of the vintage series from the 1970s and 80s, Ben Kenobi was struck down by his former student Darth Vader, and our heroes were blasting their way out of the Death Star, and we were introduced to a little something called the Fire Rings of Fornax.
Star Wars artist Randy Martinez is back with us to talk about issue number 5. Wait for it. Lo, the Moons of Yavin.
Hello, Randy.
Hello, how you doing?
We are doing very well, and I love these segments where we get to learn a little something, and after 38 years of never knowing what the word lo means, I looked it up. It's L-O, not L-O-W, because I know what that means. I've known what that means since college. But lo, used to call attention to something or to show wonder or surprise.
Aww.
Like, lo, why are we talking about this? Because for 38 years, I've always wanted to know what that title meant. Lo, the Moons of Yavin.
Did you never read any Shakespearean plays?
What do you think? What do you think? All right, Randy, so are you ready to dive into issue number 5?
Oh,
absolutely. And you made me realize that reading these comics is actually it's a guide to learning vocabulary as well. So it has another purpose. We found another purpose.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the reason everybody loves Star Wars, is because of the vocabulary that you gain.
It's all a bridge to learning.
You know what's funny about this? I just thought of this with the Lo, the Moons of Yavin. They were doing the whole Shakespeare and Star Wars crossover, well before Ian Desher did the Shakespearean Star Wars books.
Well, it certainly appears so.
Yeah, that's funny.
The circle is now complete.
There you go.
All right, so issue number 5, Lo, the Moons of Yavin. This went on sale August 10th, 1977. And it was written and edited by Roy Thomas and penciled or illustrated, as we learned in the last episode, by Howard Chaykin. Now, in this issue, our heroes make it to the rebel base on the 4th moon of Yavin. There, they prepare for the battle that, if won, could restore freedom to the galaxy.
Now, before that, though, we actually get through the whole scene where they fight off the TIE fighters as they're leaving the Death Star as well. That's part of this issue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I was jumping into the meat of the issue.
But that's part of the meat? Are you kidding? Some of the best drawing is right there.
That's very, very true. That's very true. So, Randy, what did you think about this issue as a whole?
As a whole, it's probably my least favorite issue of the 6 issues. I agree with you in that it is kind of a bridge comic. There's a lot of explaining and stuff. And also, this is probably the most accurate to the film, and at least in the storytelling and the narrative. So there aren't as many surprises going back and reading this and things like, oh, I didn't realize they said that in that old issue. It's pretty much to the movie, because by this time that it was created, the movie was out, and making things look like and sound like the movie was very important. So that's what I got.
But of course, there's always things to talk about.
Yes.
Oh, of course. There's no shortage of things to talk about.
Well, what's funny about this, Randy? So it's your least favorite. This one for me is almost my favorite so far, just in terms of the artwork, because I think it really rings true than the comics that we've seen before to the movie, and so I really there's such attention to the layout and the details and the backgrounds of this comic.
Oh yeah, the backgrounds are more defined than ever before.
Yeah,
Yes.
and like just the first couple pages here is like, wow, that there's some really awesome backgrounds now that are like definitely from the movie, which of course I love, you know.
But in movie terms, this is really the bridging segment going from the second act to the third act.
Right. And then overall, I also notice a general, I don't know if the layout artist is different on this, but I really like the layout of this particular comic in general. And they do really well with highlighting different story points just through the layout alone.
All right, now before we get into the meat of the story, you know we got to talk about the cover art.
Yes.
Of course.
Yay.
All right, Randy, let's start with you again. What do you get to say about this? How accurate is this to the story?
Well, to the story, that was my second part of my conversation on this.
Oops.
But the first point that I just wanted to point out was I had mentioned this, that it is probably the most accurate image-wise to the movie. You know, you have that's obviously the Millennium Falcon. The costumes are correct, and lo and behold, that looks like Chewbacca.
Yes.
There's that word, lo.
Yes.
Which I didn't even mean to say.
Look at that. Wow, we're bringing it full circle.
Yeah, so it actually looks like Chewbacca now, and you know, Death Star's a little shiny looking, and it's a little off scale, but it's the Death Star. Now, story-wise, obviously, this scene never takes place in Star Wars, so that is, of course, going to rub some people, Richard, the wrong way. And but it's of course a selling point when it's sitting there on the magazine rack, and they need to sell this comic, especially to people who have not seen Star Wars. And it's exciting. You have a laser blast, you have an explosion, you have big action of running, and you have explosive words, and it has everything that you need to sell a comic book.
So the cover art here is once again done by Rick Hoberg and Dave Cockrum, and I'm really liking their style. Now, I read your last comment on the Facebook page, Randy, about how I don't like interpretations. I got that sly hint. And now on this panel here, on the cover panel, we have Luke and Chewie running toward the Millennium Falcon, and the Death Star is shooting 2 laser beams down onto the Rebel base.
But they're not shooting the laser beams from the center of the Death Star, like where the shooting usually comes from.
Right. Yeah, these are just random places within this center ring.
Yeah.
And we got to read this right over here. We got to read the text on the cover.
Yeah, okay. This is what got me. Luke Skywalker strikes again.
And I'm thinking, wait, he does?
Yeah. When did he first strike?
Yeah, that was
my question.
Yeah. Now, thinking long and hard, and believe me, I did think long and hard about the comment on Facebook about my interpretations, and I gotta say this does tell a story. Doesn't tell a story from Star Wars, but it does tell a story about the Death Star looming above the Rebel base, shooting down, and everyone running every which way. We see X-Wings in the background, and we see Rebel pilots running every which way. So in this one panel, stuff is happening. Stuff is going down, which is not good for the rebellion.
That's very true.
Now, Luke, he says, "Hurry, Chewbacca, we're being attacked by the Death Star." And Han says, "It's too late, kid. We're finished."
This time it's clear where the word bubbles are coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
One interesting thing I find interesting comparing this cover to the previous cover, in which I believe it was Darth Vader looming over our heroes, right? I just want to make sure that was the last
Number
issue.
5, In Battle with Darth Vader.
Yes. Well, in here, the Death Star kind of takes the place of Darth Vader in that spot of looming death.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Also, with the first issue, too, we had Darth Vader's head above everyone else.
With the Death Star blowing up in the very first issue, if we recall. I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's interesting that they are not really that consistent in the covers in terms of trying to tell literal storytelling versus just doing an emotional cover, which is like an issue number 4 with Darth Vader looming. Obviously, he's not that big, and obviously Obi-Wan Kenobi does not have a green robe, and or does Princess Leia have slippers, red slippers? But it's going for the emotion of what's going on in that, of course. And you come to the next issue, the cover is, while not an accurate story that happens, it's still more literal.
Yeah.
It's like it's supposed to take place, a scene in a place. So it's interesting how it goes back and forth in all the covers. Some are literal, some are not so literal.
Yeah.
The one thing I never understood, I understood it to a point where in Star Wars, when the stormtroopers are running around the Death Star, they always have their blasters out. And here, everyone's running around the Rebel base with their guns in their hands. And I'm wondering, why? What are you going to shoot at? The Death Star? And in Star Wars, during during the Death Star attack, all the stormtroopers are running around the corridors holding their blasters. I know it's for effect because it looks cool.
Well, in the stormtroopers' case, do they have holsters for those big old blasters?
Yeah, they get that on the right-hand side. They have that long leather case, that holster.
They do?
Yeah.
And that holds a blaster rifle or a blaster pistol?
It holds the blaster rifle because it's a very long leather holster. Now, like in the last segment that we did, we put up the cover art on our Skywalking Through Neverland Facebook page to see what these Skywalkers had to say, and let's read one in particular here because this comes from Jim Pruitt, who was my childhood best friend, and whenever I see these issues and I'm reading them, I always remember those times when Jimmy and I would be in my living room on the floor, just having all the issues around us and poring over each and every single issue.
Nice.
So I gotta read his. Now Jim says, "Wow, I didn't know the Death Star had the power to quickly sneak up on people." Here we see the old Rebel base starting to shoot. Or is Han mistaken, and that's just a really big, large battle orb like the one Luke used to practice with the remote? That's gone totally haywire. Jim,
no, but he says that's gone totally haywire.
I did not see that. It's gone haywire. So he's right there. How did they not see this Death Star sneaking up? I picture two little legs going.
Peekaboo, I see you. Bam, bam, bam. Or pew, pew, pew.
And then Eric Warren, he sent in a picture of himself wearing a t-shirt with this cover art on it.
Wow.
Wow.
Did he say anything or just the picture?
He just sent himself
That's awesome.
a selfie with that picture of the t-shirt, which I thought was great. And I've never seen that before.
No.
I'd be all over that. All right, now, thank you, Jim, and thank you, Eric, for those. And Jim, once again, thanks for writing in there. When I read your feedback, I really did go back to those days back in 1977 when we have all those comics all over the place and just reading every single issue.
Oh, that's sweet. I just saw a friend of mine from childhood last night too for the first time in a long time. So it must be in the air. Reconnection through.
Was it a Star Wars friend?
Man, we were friends with everything: Star Wars, G.I. Joe, Transformers, ninjas, video games, everything.
And Star Wars.
Oh, of course, yeah.
All right, Sarah. Does this remind you of any childhood friends?
Not the comics. Remember, no? I'm not the nostalgia.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot.
I just read this morning.
All right. Well, you know what? Having just read it this morning.
Okay.
Let's get a synopsis here.
All right. So the issue picks up where the Millennium Falcon is just fallen under attack from a squad of Imperial TIE fighters. And unfortunately, it doesn't have John Williams music, but that's okay. You can hear it in your head.
Right.
Now, the first narration box says...
And I love this part.
Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Chewbacca have rescued the Princess Leia from her imprisonment on the Galactic Empire's powerful battle station, the Death Star.
Now, I got a question here. What about R2 and 3PO? Didn't they have a hand in that?
You know what? They're segregated.
What, didn't 3PO and R2, weren't they the ones who saved them from the trash compactor?
Yeah, they'd all be dead.
All right, so where's that in the narration?
It's not there.
Someone get Roy Thomas on the line right now.
I don't know. It's not racial discrimination, but is it droidal?
Yeah, droid discrimination, and then Chewbacca didn't get his medal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
If we look at this first panel, we see R2 and 3PO off to the side they're posing as if to say the same thing. Hey guys, what about us? What have we forgotten here? It's like R2 and 3PO are reading the narration box.
I think you're reading a little into that, Richard.
I'm not reading into that. Look at the way 3PO has his hand on his hip. Look at this first panel.
Oh, wow.
Got his hands on the hip like, hello, what are we, invisible?
And then R2's going,
He's like,
beep.
oh, really?
Yeah.
And Sarah, didn't you have a comment about Han Solo's pants?
Oh.
That sounds really weird.
I have no problem with Han Solo's pants. I think they look nice. In fact, I think they look much better. They're much more low seated.
Wait, what's that first word?
Low.
No.
Oh boy. All right. Hashtag low is the one around here. Okay. But no, remember, I don't know, was it last issue where Han Solo's pants were like up to his chest?
Oh yeah.
In one of these pictures? Well, this one they're actually at the right spot, I would say, and they're pretty tight.
Sarah, come back. Sarah,
I have
Sarah,
no problem
Sarah,
with Han Solo's pants.
All right, let's get off of Han Solo's pants, would you?
Okay.
Stop it!
I'm gonna look at my
All right.
Card Trader app over
so,
here
Randy,
now.
let's talk about this scene where Luke and Han are just getting into the gun ports of the Millennium Falcon because they know the TIE fighters are very close and about to attack. Now, what really stuck out to you about these first two panels?
You know, it's the three panels that go together that stuck out to me, actually, where they're going into their minds and what they're thinking. And you have Luke Skywalker being, I never fired this gun before, and he's got to do it for Ben Kenobi. And then the other thing that maybe, again, here we go with the vocabulary thing. They're saying Han Solo thoughts are more mundane.
I know. Okay, but then listen to his thoughts. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
Like pretty much they're deeper than what Luke was just saying. It doesn't sound very, unless I don't understand what mundane means.
And they're straight out of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
Should we read them?
Yes, please.
Okay. And this is Han's thoughts. That old man Kenobi died freeing us from the Death Star's beam that held us. And this is one erstwhile space smuggler that's going to see he didn't die in vain.
Now, is it me, or can you not picture Harrison Ford saying lines like this?
Now, but he's thinking them. He's thinking them.
He's thinking that he's an erstwhile space smuggler?
All right, so that wins the award for my best line in this issue, but we'll get to that in just a bit.
Yeah.
Now, from what I could tell in Star Wars, Han wasn't a big fan of Ben Kenobi, but now he's doing it for Ben Kenobi. Let's make sure Ben Kenobi doesn't die in vain. We gotta get out of here and save the rebellion.
Yeah, and that's apparently mundane thinking.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't understand.
Me neither. But now, Randy, you were saying that this third panel with Leia and Chewie, it forms a trifecta.
Yes, it does. To basically, I cut all the way to the end where they're saying, and Chewbacca, the 7-foot fur-covered Wookiee, his thoughts are much his own as the strange language he speaks. Like, they're basically saying he's mindless and we don't know what the heck he's thinking. Just don't worry about this guy. They could just leave it. Just don't write anything. Right? If you got nothing to say, just don't write it. They just have to basically write out in some Shakespearean language that we have no idea what he's thinking.
Yeah, you're right, because they go up on this extreme close-up of the Wookiee, and without any narration there, it would be extrapolated that he's also thinking, too.
Yeah, so we have Luke's inner thoughts, Han's inner thoughts.
Yeah.
We didn't have Leia's inner thoughts, and Chewie, nothing. It's almost as if the writers are saying, you know what, we got nothing for Chewie. We got nothing.
Yeah.
His thoughts. I had to read it like 4 times before I even understood what they were like kind of trying to say.
Well, explain it, because I have no idea what they're trying to say.
His thoughts are as much his own as the strange language he speaks. So I think what they're trying to say is that his thoughts are just as weird and not understandable as the language he speaks.
Oh, no, I didn't get that. I just got that his thoughts are his own language, so we can't understand them. So,
well, yeah, that's what I'm
don't
saying.
even
Yeah, we don't understand. Don't even try it. Let's move along.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was getting. Now, I love this whole sequence with the TIE fighters being past the Millennium Falcon, and their lasers almost look like a waterfall of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's on page 83 of the omnibus.
On 83, there's a particular panel where there's just 2 TIE fighters shooting this big stream of green light. And boy, I think that could parallel the Death Star's energy blasts.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to this page later because the panel underneath that, where Leia is, and this time a bolt pierces the overloaded ray deflectors to strike the side of the ship, and Leia's going wee, and the whole ship is going wee. This, are we getting to favorites yet, or not yet?
No, not just
yet. Okay. Well, that's a pretty good panel. I like it.
Well, I'd like to say that I don't know what I think is the elephant in the room is what's going on with this TIE fighter pilot.
What?
The one with the...
on page 82? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he looks cool. Don't get me wrong. I like the look, but I mean, that does not look like a TIE fighter pilot at all.
Did you ever have that bullet head doll when you were a kid?
The bullet head doll? No.
Yeah, he was part of, I think he was part of the G.I. Joe collection called Bullet Head. He had a head shaped like a bullet. That's what this guy here reminds me of. Because, yeah, he does not look like a TIE fighter pilot. He's just got like this bullet-shaped head and tubes coming out of his nose.
Okay.
Doesn't the TIE fighter pilot helmet have like those tubes hooked up to
from the
oxygen tank?
Yeah, from right
like down by their
the little chin things.
Okay. So I think that's what they're trying to replicate, but didn't quite work.
Well, they are, but on the side it almost looks like a Admiral Akbar helmet in black, kind of.
Yeah.
Because you have the eyes off the side. You know, if those are the eye stalks and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so lots going on here from an artistic standpoint, but the one thing that kind of gets me is that they go into the fact that Luke uses the Force to successfully blast the TIE fighters, and now from a story standpoint, this diminishes the impact from the end of the film when he blasts the proton torpedoes and he makes it into the exhaust ports because he was using the Force.
Wow, that's a really good point.
So from this, and he's using the Force to actually not just try, but he's actually succeeding in blasting away the TIE fighters.
Well, because he almost got a TIE fighter, but then infinitesimally, what did it say? Something like infinitesimally he shifts.
Right.
And he's talking about using the Force.
And shoots the TIE fighter into space dust.
Yeah, I think it's just because the fact that everybody's seen the movie at this point when they were creating it, all those themes of the Force and kind of start leaking in to the way they're illustrating and they're doing the dialogue. And of course there wasn't as much quality control, I guess is the word, not quality control or canon control. The people that read these things, and at the time I'm sure they didn't really care.
Right.
As opposed to if they did that in a comic nowadays, it'd be like, no. You're not giving away the end thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like the fact that he can focus the Force into the proton torpedoes into the Death Star because there's more at stake.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what really comes down to Luke, is he's all about saving the galaxy, the universe, putting himself in jeopardy.
Yeah, and in a way, it also takes away from his showing his ability as a gunner. You know, his ability to just go ahead and get the shot without the Force.
Right.
You know, and that he's never fired this gun before, but he figures it out on the fly and he knows how to do it. And I think that says more about his prowess as a pilot, as a gunner, as anything to do with the spaceship.
Right.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a mention on page 84 and 85. It's kind of an example of this layout that I'm talking about that I really love in terms of, this is illustrating the whole TIE fighter battle, and it's very exciting. And you have different ways of laying out the panels from like one page to the other, and it just is a very good movement. And I love when the TIE fighter explodes, you kind of see an echo of the TIE fighter cockpit, but then this explosion that's just really nicely illustrated. So I'm just loving the art in this particular issue.
Good. Then you're finally on board with us now.
Yeah. Well, yes.
All right. Now, you know what? Let's get on board with this part right after Luke and Han have defeated the TIE fighters, the Imperial attack, and now Luke and Han are in the cockpit talking about the princess.
Well, it's sort of, I guess, kind of not on the point of what you're saying, but I did notice the fact that this illustrator has made the Millennium Falcon cockpit look enormous.
Yeah, this cockpit in the comic strip is about as big as my living room.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, in fact, there are some panels.
Or almost like a Star Trek, the Enterprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's about 13 steps between seats.
Uh-huh.
Whereas in the movie, obviously, it's not. It's the size of like a VW van. And I think that actually helps this conversation in the movie. Because they are close to each other, and there is a confrontation there. Whereas in these panels, Luke is up to the back of the cockpit, kind of speaking under his breath. And it's not as effective to me.
First of all, Han is letting on that he likes the princess more than he did in the film, and this really irates Luke. And when Han says, "Do you think it's possible for a princess and a guy like me?" and Luke shouts, "No!" And is it me, or does Luke now have fangs?
I was going to comment on this panel as well.
Wow.
Who wants to start?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, I never say anything bad about art.
That's a great way to preface this.
There's
but
a
sorry,
butt coming on.
I have to break my rule. This is just horrible. It's like I mean, as an artist, I mean, that's just straight up being lazy. I mean, it's not even. You know what it reminds me of is in the Matrix. Remember when his mouth closes and he's trying to open it, and it's like there's little bits of pulling apart. Do you remember that?
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's what this reminds me. Even though you can see his lips and his mouth is is not shut closed like Neo was, but that's what his teeth look like. They look like more like it's like gum being pulled apart.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, that kind of scares me.
Yeah.
But I agree with you though that the expression is a little over the top to what was actually going on.
Right. Yeah. It works so much better on film. Just their little repartee.
Yeah. The editing really helps save the meaning of that scene. Now, Sarah, you had a comment, a segment or two ago that Leia looked like she had fangs.
Oh yeah. Last issue.
So I know what you were saying last time, Randy, about these artists sometimes will moonlight. I think this artist here was moonlighting on Dracula or Vampira.
It's possible. This issue on that subject is obviously not illustrated by Howard Chaykin, at least not the inking. And in some cases, as I learned from the research I did, that he didn't even do some of the pencils sometimes. So this issue more than any other looks like Howard Chaykin barely touched this one.
Yeah, that's very visible in Luke Skywalker and Han Solo.
Yeah,
I noticed.
Yeah.
Now, next up, they now enter the Massassi base. And I really love this part over here because the writers give a little bit of a background to this temple we really didn't know anything about. And the narration says, the original builders would not now recognize the interior of their once mighty edifice. I don't know if they saw that in the script. I don't know if they were just kind of writing something to fill space. You know what? I never really knew about the history of Massassi. Did you ever know anything about the history of this race of people? Because I have something here that I pulled.
Not really. I mean, the little bit that I did learn was years later when I used to play the Decipher CCG game, the card game, and they had little lores and stories and stuff like that, but nothing too deep. I'm interested to hear what you found.
Now, I always knew they had some kind of Sith background to it. And so I really wanted to do some research on this, and this is what I found.
Where did you find this?
I found this on Wikipedia.
Okay.
It says, the Great Temple, commonly referred to as the Massassi Temple, was built on Yavin 4 by the Massassi to worship Naga Sadao, a Sith Lord who had enslaved and mutated the Massassi using Sith alchemy 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin. The temple later housed the Rebel Alliance base and the Jedi Praxium. The temple was destroyed during the Yuuzhan Vong occupation of Yavin 4.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not. I've never. What is this Jedi Praxium?
I think that is from the video games, the Jedi Knight.
Oh, that's why I
the
don't know
games with Kyle Katarn, I think is the name, the way you say his name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And where it's basically the Jedi Academy.
Right. Okay. I'm sure this is going to be in a Star Wars anthology film.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much here, so much history, so much rich history to go with being a Sith Lord temple to a Jedi training academy.
Well, that Sith Lord stuff, I mean, that's all Legends lore.
Well, it is now.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
So they could have the option of going, pluck, take that and put it into the new, what is that called? New canon.
Right.
Would you think it will be in Rogue One, at least?
Maybe. Well, yeah, because during Rogue One, they must have a base already on Yavin.
Yeah, because they had already left Dantooine.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that.
But
They
it
could
fits
be
in the
based.
timeline.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At
Hey,
the
good,
Mississippi base.
good point, Randy.
Yeah, so there could be something there, and they
Yeah.
heard that Darth Vader might be in that movie.
Whoa. Cool.
I mean, that's what I've read on the internet.
Ah.
So
Well,
you
so
know
of
it's
course
true.
it's true.
Right.
Right.
All right, so next we have the heroes walking into or being driven into the base.
Right.
And now this is an odd line. I even thought odd in the movie when General Willard, or as he's known here, Commander Willard, he expresses his sorrow because Alderaan was just blown up and he's trying to console Leia. And she tells him,
We have no time for sorrows, Commander.
Yeah.
it's like, but your home world just blew up and he's trying to console you. But I know right now
It's a time crunch.
It is, but
Because they know it's established in the previous couple panels that they know that there's a tracking. They probably tracked us. That was too easy.
Right.
So my question is, why did they go straight to the base? Why didn't they land somewhere else and try to find the homing beacon maybe and try to get rid of it before going to the base?
Yeah, that I've thought about that too.
I don't know. It just seemed more apparent. I've never thought about it while watching the movie.
because R2 has got the plans to the Death Star.
And
And they need to upload that into the computer.
So they should land somewhere else. Everyone transfer to a different ship.
But no matter
and go
where
to
they
Yavin.
go, the Empire will be able to follow the Millennium Falcon because it has the
Right.
homing beacon.
That's why they need a different ship.
Han's already stated that he's done.
Mm.
He's just taking them to where they need to go. So they could have just flown. Princess Leia, could have flown with R2D2 and stopped off, knowing that there was a tracking on it, gone and taken the droids off the ship, hired Boshek or somebody like that, and then have Boshek take them to Yavin 4. Because here she's like, the Death Star has surely tracked us here. If I was Willard, I'd be like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
You came
Exactly.
here? That was
Yeah.
your best idea to come straight here.
Yeah.
But I don't think Willard knows that there's a homing beacon on this ship, or really what Leia's been up to up until this moment.
That's all conjecture.
She was captured by the Empire, and I think everyone knows that.
But
Because
she knows about the stolen plant that are hidden on R2. Do they know that they're returning? That she's returning with R2?
Well, in a scene earlier in the comic and in the movie, they reference it. Vader is saying, that because Tarkin says, "I hope this works. I'm taking a great chance with this. This had better work." He said, "Are you certain that the homing beacon is secure aboard their ship?" And then he also goes on to say even more obvious, so that we can follow wherever they go,
Right.
which will doubtlessly be the rebel base. You didn't really need to say that last line, dude. I get what you're trying to say. But so Vader, holding two fists up in the air for some reason, says, "No fear, this will be a day long remembered." And then as goes on to say, but they know there's a homing beacon on there.
So I think right now, like you were saying, it's just a matter of time. There's a time crunch, and they've got to get the plans uploaded so they can plan out their attack and hopefully get it done in time, which, as we learn the next issue, maybe they do or do not.
Well, in issue 1, they tell us if they do.
Yeah. Seriously.
So she's got it. That's the only thing I could say is that she knew there just wasn't time, or that she didn't want to risk landing on another planet and getting captured and losing the data tapes.
The data MP4s. And I'm very glad that they cover this this very conversation we're having right now in the new Leia Marvel comics. After it picks up right when Star Wars cuts off.
Right.
The Rebels, Luke and Han just got their medals, none for Chewie. And Leia gives this big speech, and then she gets a chance to go off and really think
Deal
about
with
what
Alderaan.
just happened.
Yeah.
She got a day or two to herself now. So I'm very glad that they do cover that.
Well, I'd like to see if they do a special edition, that they do a scene that I'm sure they cut out once the Death Star's been blown up and they're all happy, and Dodonna's standing there next to her, and he takes a deep breath and looks over and says, "Glad that worked, but listen, next time, if you know you have a homing beacon on you, don't come straight here."
Yeah.
We dodged a bullet this time. May not be lucky with a second Death Star.
Yeah.
Oh, there's not going to be a second Death Star.
Yeah.
No, trust me. They did it once the first time. Next time, they will cover that exhaust port, and there's no way of getting in.
Right.
Only to know that the second Death Star, they'll build a much bigger exhaust port where you can fly ships into it.
Let's take a short break from classic Marvel Star Wars comic segment with artist Randy Martinez to hear from some of our other podcast friends.
If you love all things Disney, then you're a D-head. And if you're a D-head, this is the show for you. Each and every week, Disney Blue presents Disney on Demand, your free, dedicated Disney podcast hosted by Jonathan Johnson. Every week, Disney Blue relives all the Disney magic, movies, and memories. Every week, you'll hear our celebrity guests who make the magic, your favorite Disney actors, writers, directors, and characters. The best of classic Disney and breaking news on Disney's latest films, television shows, and theme parks. So put on your ears and give it a little bibbidi-bobbidi-boo. Disney Blues Disney on Demand is on the air, and it's free. Just go to dizradio.com. That's D-I-Z radio.com. See you real soon.
Do you like vacationing in Walt Disney World in Florida? Do you like hearing about others' vacations to Disneyland or on a Disney cruise? Well, I do. My name is Kim Slusher, and I am host of the Distracted Life Podcast. The Distracted Life Podcast is where I share trip reports from listeners on all Disney destinations. I also give trip planning strategies for those going to Walt Disney World. Come give it a listen. DistractedLifePodcast.com.
And now back to classic Marvel Star Wars comics with artist Randy Martinez as we cover the 5th issue of the Star Wars adaptation, Lo, the Moons of Yavin. Now, speaking of the Death Star, as a kid, Randy, were you like me and thought the battle took place around that center ring on the battle station?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I think that's what everyone thought, because there's a line in here spoken by General Dodonna where he says, "You must maneuver straight down this shaft, which circles the station."
Yeah.
And he's pointing right to the center line.
Yeah, with a baton
With a
of
pointer.
a conductor's baton.
Yeah.
He's channeling Sorcerer Mickey.
Yeah, he's very confident. He knows what's going on here. Yeah, until I'm not sure when it was that we found out that the trenches are just on the surface of the Death Star.
Right.
And not around that center ring.
Well, I can tell you when I found out.
Oh?
Just now.
Oh, that's funny.
See, it's all about the learning.
Yes,
all
it
about
is.
the learning, kids.
Yes.
You're welcome. Now, there is one thing I want to mention here is that Hector Rios, one of our Skywalkers, he wrote in about this last panel of General Dodonna.
Oh.
And I like the fact that he brought this up because this was in contention for one of my favorite panels, but there were some other ones that beat this out. But I love this one right over here.
On page 93 of the omnibus.
So Hector writes, "Man, that powerful 'May the Force be with you' from General Dodonna would even make me jump into an X-Wing fighter and take on the Death Star." And look at this, and look at his stance in the panel before that. Dodonna's got some serious swagger.
Nice.
In the panel where he's yelling, "May the force be with you," his arm is stretched right out he's got his pointer finger out, and he's saying, "Man those ships, and may the force be with you." And wow, that's pretty serious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that panel a lot.
In the panel before that, his hands are in his pants. Like, all right, guys, some of you may not return, some of you may, but I doubt that.
He looks like Edward James Olmos in Zoot Suit. He just needs the big hat,
the big Huggy Bear hat.
Yeah, and then I think you got to read it correctly. The pointing the finger. It says, "And may the force be with you."
Yep.
like he's Smokey the Bear
telling you to join the army.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
May the force be with you, and kids, put out those forest fires before they start.
Only you can put out Death Stars.
Nice. Now, on page 95 of the omnibus.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Randy, let's talk about this one panel with Luke and Leia.
With the pink background.
With the bright pink background.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to dive us into this one?
Oh, yeah.
Well, first of all, yeah.
I think you got to go the panel before that.
Yeah.
You know, the camera angle and the clenched hands together is very suggestive, which, you know, I am all about. I like that, you know, but, you know, they didn't know his brother and sister and all that. But, yeah, you know, they're pretty frisky. And the funny thing is that I did the Star Wars A New Hope illustrated for Topps, where I actually had to illustrate this scene where they're talking.
Oh.
And there isn't really anything suggesting that they kissed from what I remember, because I would have remembered that.
Yeah, because in the movie, she just gives Luke a little peck on the cheek, and he's
yeah.
happy with that.
Yeah,
but this kiss here, this is just as much, or if not more, passionate than the kiss she gives Luke in The Empire Strikes Back.
Mm.
Oh, I think this is even more, because look at Luke's eyes; they're closed.
Yeah, although they do have closed mouths in this one. No open mouth
as far
kiss.
As you know. You can hear the music.
Oh boy.
Barry White playing in the background.
Yeah.
Well, he's going into war, so.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, might be the last chance. Last kiss. Oh boy.
So she's USO now.
Yeah, exactly. Now, this scene here where Luke and Biggs meet up, and I love the fact that they put this back into the special edition. I love seeing Luke with other friends, and the fact that they're going to share all these stories when they get back. And Blue Leader comes over, not Red Leader, but in the book, Blue Leader. Now, do you know why they changed it from Blue Squadron to Red Squadron?
Do tell.
Because they were using blue screen in the film, and if the insignia on the helmets were blue, then that would have bled right through.
Oh,
so
that's the same reason R2-D2's black whenever he's
exactly
outside.
In The Empire Strikes Back. So that's why they had to change it to green screen, because usually you use blue screen for models and green screen for people.
Wow.
Because people have a little bit of blue pigment in their skin,
right?
So it was starting to bleed. So they had to change it to green screen.
Yeah, then people would start to disappear.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why in here they had to change it from Blue Squadron to Red Squadron. And Blue Leader, let's call him, he comes over to Luke and Biggs with some very badly timed concerns. He says, "Have you been checked out on this Income T-65? Like, you know we're about to head into battle within seconds, right? I don't know. Do we have 20 minutes? Oh, we don't, because the Death Star is 19 minutes away."
Well, there's actually a scene that is cut out of even here that I illustrated for the trading cards Topps put out, and that was Luke training in a simulator.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and what was fun about that trading card I did was I drew Luke with the helmet on, but he still has his tunic on. And Biggs is looking through the back of the simulator like you would look at somebody playing the new Star Wars battle pod.
Right.
All right.
And for the screen that Luke is looking at, I thought they wouldn't never let me do this, but they did. Instead of drawing out a whole new computer screen, I just took a screenshot of the old Atari video game. And that was, I used that as a simulator, and they loved it.
Wow.
That's a riot. Now, what would Blue Leader say if Luke said, no, I haven't been checked out on this?
Yeah.
What would Blue Leader say?
Then you can't go up there? I don't know. But I have something that totally jumped out to me on page 96 of the omnibus.
The fact that Blue Leader looks like he's 12 years old?
No, but now that you mention it. No, but Blue
He looks like
Leader,
Howdy Doody.
He does. So yeah, Blue Leader comes up and meets Luke and says, I met your father once when I was just a boy. He was a great pilot. Well, who does he mean by this? Does he mean Anakin? Does he mean Uncle Owen? I was so confused by this. And then I read the next panel. But I was just like, who? And then which he explains, Blue Leader explains, the galaxy will be a lot better off when the sons of the original Jedi Knights are back on the scene. Now, okay, there's several things wrong with this statement. For one thing, no one's supposed to know that Anakin had sons, right?
Right.
So Luke,
oh, right.
right? And then for another thing, Jedi don't have attachments. They don't have kids. No,
they're not supposed to.
They're not supposed to have kids. So the fact that he says the sons of the original Jedi Knights, like, what the heck?
Well, I think you're reading that through the eyes of someone from 2015.
Well,
Exactly.
I know that, but I am because I read it this morning. So there you go. So what did you guys think of this when you read it? Like way back then.
Way back then, I don't think I knew how to read yet. But as for putting the pieces, yeah, of course, this is written way before the prequels or any of that. That mythology was written out, and but I thought reading this again, the Blue Leader might be Kitster.
You know what? That's what I thought. That's the note I had.
Really?
Wouldn't that be funny?
That is hilarious.
Yeah, because where did he meet Anakin Skywalker?
Yeah, I know.
When he was a boy.
Right.
Huh. And I think he just connected the dots with the Skywalker, but as George Lucas said, Skywalker in this world is like Smith. So every fourth person has the name Skywalker.
Okay, so that's why we see all kinds of Skywalkers in Star Wars then. Luke's like, oh, your name's Skywalker too. Awesome.
Well, Snaggletooth, like you just mentioned, his last name, Skywalker.
Of course.
Walrus Man, Hammerhead, all Skywalkers.
Yep. Luther Campbell, Skywalker.
Oh, that's a sore spot for George. But he won that lawsuit. Booyah. For anyone who doesn't know, a quick recap on that.
Luther Campbell of the Two Live Crew
was using the name Luke Skywalker with Luuke Skywalker.
Yeah.
And he thought that was going to be okay. And George said, no.
Right.
So they settled out of court for like $250,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but at the same time, the opposite effect happened, and it's because it was Luke Skywalker, and then they told him to stop it, so he just changed it to Skywalker with 2 Ys to Skywalker Records.
Right.
And then that's when the lawsuit came down, and so of course at that time there's a lot of stuff that they were doing that was getting a lot of noise, by parents and politicians and stuff, which ended up, including the George Lucas lawsuit, ended up selling them more records than they ever would have.
Of course.
If they had just said, you know what, just whatever, ignore them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what if a little kid were to walk into a record store and say, hey, there's a record there by Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker. I want to buy that. And he learns words other than low and fornax and forp.
Then that's the day that boy becomes a man.
Wow.
Well, you would think that day would come when he saw Return of the Jedi and Leia in that slave bikini outfit.
Yeah, well,
that's what
that too.
All right, now let's talk about the Death Star attack. By attack, I mean, I don't know what I mean by that, because all we see are 4 X-Wing fighters leaving the base.
Yeah.
Now, even in the film with a limited budget, they had a whole fleet of fighters. Here, they have 4 X-Wings blasting off to fight the humongous battle station Death Star.
Which we actually don't see.
No, not in this issue. But you know what? We haven't been introduced yet to Wedge.
Oh.
Well, we did see him in the briefing room. We saw a character that could have been Wedge. but let's okay, process of elimination. There's Luke, Biggs, and the third one we have
Blue Leader.
Blue Leader.
The fourth one, let's say Wedge. But in this briefing room scene, there's quite a few people in there.
Oh yeah.
That's just something that stuck out to me as you couldn't finish the panel.
Yeah, they could have done well by adding a few more ships.
Now, this issue ends with the Rebel fleet, 1.3 parsecs away from their impending doom.
Oh.
So that's where it ends. They haven't reached the Death Star yet. They're just on their way.
Yeah, all two of what is obviously the toy of the X-Wings.
You're absolutely correct. That is the Kenner. It even says Kenner on it.
No, it doesn't.
The one in the back says "Made in China."
You push down the R2 head, and the S foils snap open.
Oh, cool!
Yeah, I know.
Well,
see?
for the first month that you hit his head, and after that month, it's worn down so much they never open up without holding R2's head down.
Whenever I hear that noise, I can always picture my mom saying, "Would you please stop doing that?" Because it would pretty much be a constant boom, 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 boom of opening up the S foils.
Oh.
Now, Randy, now that we've finished up the issue, tell us, what is your best line?
Favorite dialogue. Oh wow, that is tough. I have a favorite narrative.
Okay.
Narration or dialogue.
Oh, okay. So that would be I have to go back to the Chewbacca thinking. You know me. I'm the guy that likes the weird dialogue.
Yes.
And that's the one for me. Is not only is it just written very weird, it doesn't even need to be there.
Right.
You know, it's like there's more drama by just looking into those blue eyes.
Ooh.
And thinking, what is he thinking? Oh, there's mystery there. But instead, they write out some weird kind of Shakespearean almost thing, like we don't know what he's thinking.
Yep.
It's like, thank you for
not helping.
I can't get those 2 seconds back.
Yeah.
Once again, we got nothing. So, Sarah, what is your favorite line of dialogue or narration?
My favorite line is on page 96 of the omnibus. It's Biggs is taking his leave from Luke, saying, "May the Force be with you." Now, before that, he says, "It's going to be like old times, little buddy. We're a couple of shooting stars that'll never be stopped." Oh my gosh, why wasn't this line in the movie?
Well, Biggs does say,
"It'll be like old times, Luke. They'll never stop us."
Yeah, but how awesome is this?
They go one step further.
We're a couple of shooting stars. Now, what's funny about this is it's very nostalgic for me. Do you want to know why?
Yes.
My very first soccer team, when I was 7 years old, we were called the Shooting Stars.
Awesome.
And we're the Shooting Stars that couldn't be stopped. We were soccer and we won our league and it was cool.
This Biggs should have been your mascot.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I love this. Sarah, you haven't said what music you hear behind any of these panels yet. So for this, I'm going to give you one.
Okay.
When he's talking like this, I hear, "When you wish upon a star, makes no difference who you are."
Yeah. Oh.
I can hear that music right behind him saying that.
That's so funny.
If you look at the X-Wing pilot right behind Luke, you can see little Mickey ears.
Hidden Mickey.
Even they knew back then what was going to happen.
There you go. Oh.
So I've got to say that my favorite line, we already talked about, and that's the... And this is one erstwhile space smuggler that's going to see he didn't die in vain.
Hans
We already
thoughts.
talked about that one. I'm going to go to page 89.
Oh, okay.
When Han and Leia are arguing, and Leia says, "If money is all you love, then that's what you'll receive." And Han says, "What else is there?" Well...
Oh.
Talk about making him a two-dimensional character.
Yeah. That's awful. Wow.
What else is there? Well,
but he's like yelling it. Well,
yeah.
It reminds me of Caddyshack.
Well, we're waiting.
Yeah, see, I can hear it in Ted Knight's voice.
Yeah.
I just can't hear it in Harrison Ford's voice.
Yep.
Meanwhile.
Yeah.
Back at the Justice League of America. Well, I cannot do Ted Knight's voice, but we get the idea. Now, what is your favorite panel, Randy?
My favorite panel is the very opening splash page. And usually wanting to go with something kind of weird and funky. This is like classic comic book art, and the tilt of the panel, the action, Han running, and everybody's a little action except for the droids, of course. They're just, like you said, they're a little peeved that they didn't get credit for the rescue. They're like, what? You're not going to give Chewbacca a medal after we do this either, are you?
Yep.
And now, where is Han Solo running in this panel?
Well, he's running to the guns.
The guns.
But where is he right now? He's in his living room sized cockpit.
Yeah, he's in his living room sized cockpit,
and he's running.
He's doing some hip hop dancing or something. But in terms of the comic book art and the compositions, there you have the action. You have it's a great opening splash page to make like, oh, I want to read what's in the rest of this.
Yeah,
very true.
Totally agreed.
All right, Sarah.
All right, for me, I really like actually in page 3, I think, so page 83 of the omnibus, that bottom panel where they're being attacked and it's looking inside of the Millennium Falcon, and Leia, you can just tell by the tilt of the panel once again that it's being rocked. The ship is being rocked, and the motion there, and everything. I just like the motion in this panel. You can
So the panel beforehand, we see the TIE fighters shooting this waterfall of energy. So
right.
the Millennium Falcon was just hit.
Right. So Leia's being rocked. We have Chewie in the foreground.
And what is Chewie saying?
Oh my gosh, Chewie is going honk. I'm not sure.
That's pretty much their go-to line for Chewbacca.
Yeah, it's weird. Honk. Yeah, in fact, in a lot of these panels where Chewie's talking, I can't tell if it's Chewie talking or if something's like banging against something else, and that's the what do you call it?
Like an explosion?
Yeah, like an expression of like something knocking against something else.
Like a sound effect.
Yes, thank you.
But now, do you like the action? Do you like the way it's colored?
Yeah, it is. It's very different colored from the panels before. And I like the action, and I can just kind of hear the music going as it's happening.
Leia's going one way, and Chewie's leaning the other way?
Yeah, it's nice.
Okay. Now, my favorite panel, Randy, you kind of touched on this, and I didn't want to say anything back then, but it's on page 88 of the omnibus, and Vader, he's shaking his fists. when he's saying this will be a day long remembered, his fists are up like a little child. Like a little child really wants something. Like, please remember this day. I want to remember this day.
Well, it reminded me of Beavis from Beavis and Butthead.
Now, I have got to give honorable mention on page 84. And of the omnibus here.
84?
Yeah. And Han is giving a great big thumbs up to the camera. After Luke had just shot down his first TIE fighter, we cut to a panel of Han, and his hand is in the foreground.
We did it, kid.
Like he's selling Coca-Cola.
It's Mentos.
Yeah, exactly. Luke, I know you're busy, but here's a breath freshener.
Yep.
It's the Fresh Maker.
Awesome. Wow.
You can just imagine that, and like they finish the battle, and they go to Luke or Han, and all he's missing is that tube of Mentos, and then the camera, the picture just stops.
Freeze frames,
yeah, freeze frame.
That'll make a fun Photoshop moment.
Yeah, somebody with fans, you gotta do that. We want to see it.
There you go. Now, any last comments on this issue, Randy? Number 5, Lo, the Moons of Yavin.
I just more of what I was saying before. I think it's a good bridge comic. But I really am looking forward to the last issue because it's one of my favorites, and it's probably one of the best artwork in terms of portraying the movie, and it's really tight, and this leads right into that. So I know you're gonna have a lot of good things to say about that issue, Richard.
Oh boy. Very excited.
Don't look at it yet. I like it too.
There are a lot of interpretations I wouldn't be appreciative of, especially the cover, but we'll get into that later. I can already tell you that this next cover irates me. But you know what?
You mean it makes you irate?
Yes.
Yes.
This cover makes me irate. We'll go into it then. Now, Randy, before we wrap things up, we know that you got some big things coming up.
Yeah, and can I just jump in here and say I'm on the Star Wars Card Trader app, and my favorite cards to collect are the illustrated series of Empire Strikes Back cards.
All right. I like to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves the painting you did of Han and Leia kissing.
Oh, I was so excited when I got that. I did a fangirl flail. I was like, and then now I have two. I might have traded one away, but I did have two at one point, so that was exciting. Anyway,
Yeah,
and you did that one.
Yeah, I did all of the odd cards in the Empire Strikes Back illustrated series. A lot of fans, actually, I'm surprised, that collect on the Card Trader don't know you can actually get physical cards of these as well. It was a small release back in April, but there's a lot of cards still out there on eBay and things like that you can get. But the reception to the cards on the Card Trader has been really exciting. I was just excited to have them on there, number one, but the fan reaction and just so many kind things like what you just said, Sarah, really, really warms my heart. And I really appreciate hearing that kind of stuff from the fans because I'm just drawing them, and I don't really get to see or hear people's reactions. So to have this experience has been very unique to get so much feedback and so much positive feedback. So
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm sorry. The fact that they're on the Card Trader app means a lot of people with smartphones are opening them up, and so then they're able to tweet at you or contact you on social media. So I bet you are getting like a lot more response.
Yeah, and that's how I found out. somebody, because they don't tell me when they're gonna release stuff, and somebody tweeted like, "Oh, I love this card." I'm like, "Oh, you got some packs of cards, huh? Where did you find them?" They're like, "What are you talking about? It's on the card app." And I was like, "Oh, really?" So I went there, and then the great thing about how they're doing this set is, as you know, on the card app, they have you open up packs on most of them, and you hope you get the chase card.
Right.
And on this set, you're guaranteed one of the cards in every pack, which is so great. I think because I think the fans have been wanting that kind of thing for a while.
Totally.
But in terms of an artist and getting your artwork out there and people to see it, that means people are seeing my artwork, a lot. So it's just really exciting for me, and it couldn't come at a better time, I'll tell you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
As we're getting set for the next bit of news that I have is we're headed to New York Comic Con.
Yeah.
Yay.
And that is October 8th through the 11th, and we're going to be out there for a week, and I'm going to be bringing all kinds of artwork. I've lowered prices on a lot of my artwork already, and I'll have some really great prices on stuff. But I'll have original artwork that is actually used for the Empire Strikes Back cards that Topps put out, the real thing.
Nice.
As well as sketches and stuff from Star Wars and Marvel, lots of official stuff.
Now, for those Card Trader ones, are those paintings?
Those are actually, it's line art that I do with a brush and ink.
Okay.
And then I scan those in, and then they have me digital color those on the computer.
Gotcha.
I'd love to paint them all, but because of the time crunch, it's a lot faster digitally. So if you were to buy the original artwork, it's black and white. Now, I can color them in for people, but a lot of people like to buy them black and white because that's just how the original was created.
Huh.
So, but yeah, I'll have a lot of them there. I won't have all of them because I have to. We can only take so much stuff out there, but all the best stuff is going to be there.
And including some buttons.
Yes, including some buttons. But there was one other thing, two other things I want to say before we get to that part. I still cannot talk about what it is exactly, but there's going to be something that is going to be released very soon here that I will have at New York Comic Con. So stay tuned to find out what that is. We're going to announce that very soon. And I should have that I'm trying so hard not to say the wrong things there that I'm allowed to say. But it's really exciting. And so follow me on all social media and to find out what's going on with that. And I'm actually announcing here for the first time that I will have some special trading cards that I have made. That I will be giving to fans that come up and say hi, and you can get those for free from me, as well as some of the leftover Yoda trading cards that I had for Comic-Con. So it would behoove you guys to come out, come say hi, come take a look at the artwork, buy some artwork, of course. But that's not all. That's not all there is for free.
But wait, there's more?
there's more. And since this has everything to do with Skywalking Through Neverland, I will let you guys tell the big news on that.
Okay. Well, if you come up and say hi to Randy.
Wait, first, Randy, where are you going to be? Do you have a table number?
Yes, that's right. I'm so excited. I forgot. It's going to be in Artist Alley at New York Comic Con, and I am in table I3. So that is I3, not 13. That's what I thought it was. I was very confused at first, but it's I3. And I have a banner that I had specially made for New York. And if you've been following me on Instagram or Facebook, you'll know that banner that I have where I kind of look like Captain America, but with an R on my head.
Nice.
With characters in the city. So that's what the banner will look like. So look for that banner. And that's where I will be. Denise will be there with me too. So come by and see her. And also, she's going to be performing comedy while we're out there in New York. So we will be on the run a lot out there. And I have an event that I have set up on Facebook. Actually, Denise set it up for me. And I will be posting a lot of the art I will have for sale there, as well as we're going to put Denise's show dates. So if you want to come out after Comic-Con, or if you're not going to Comic-Con, you just want to see some comedy, those will be the places that Denise and I will be at. So with all that information said, now to the big Skywalking Through Neverland.
So Sarah, if I were in Artist Alley at New York Comic Con and I went over to table I3 to meet Randy and said, "Hey Randy, Forp," what would I get?
You would get a special Skywalking Through Neverland BB-8 Mickey ear button.
Yay!
The one that we've been posting all over our Facebook page and the one that everyone's been loving. And in fact, Sarah and I are wearing our BB-8 shirts right now.
Yes, we are.
This is the one where in the Mickey head, we have a hidden BB-8.
Yeah, well.
It's not really hidden.
It's not hidden.
But it's BB-8 within the Mickey head.
Yes.
And we've been getting a lot of pictures from people who have bought the shirt and have been wearing it everywhere. And
so this will be the first time the buttons will be available to the public.
To get these buttons, you have to come up and meet us in person or Randy at New York Comic Con.
Yes.
And say Forp.
Well, we're not going to be at New York Comic Con, but yes, Randy will, and he is our liaison. So yes, say Forp. That is the magic password.
Forp.
Yes. And also, if you are a fan of Skywalking Through Neverland, he may also have some Skywalking Through Neverland logo buttons as well.
Oh.
Yes.
So just come up to Randy and tell him that you
and
have...
Denise as well.
Oh, yeah, and Denise, that you've heard the two of them on Skywalking Through Neverland, and he'll give you a Skywalking button. But if you say Forp, you got a little something coming your way.
There you go.
Awesome. So you come to my table, you're gonna walk away with a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
For free.
Yes,
for free.
But then that's also an enticement to, of course, check out Randy's awesome work. And
yeah,
maybe
of course.
buy something.
I am an artist and I do have bills to pay. So your patronage is very much appreciated. And I'll actually have a lot of different things at different prices for all kinds of different budgets. So come by, take a look, and take a huge bag full of stuff, if you will.
And you're going to have Star Wars stuff? You're going to have your Marvel stuff up there?
Yeah, so Star Wars, Marvel. I'm working on some things some sketches and stuff that I'll have for there. I haven't finished them yet, but I'll start posting those when I do. And of course, any of the things that you see posted that are going to be for sale, you can actually buy now. So you don't actually have to be going to New York Comic Con. If you want to buy it now, that's fine. These aren't exclusives that I have for Comic Con for New York. So check those things out at randymartinez.storeenvy.com.
And if they want to contact you on Twitter to find out what's going on next, how do they do that?
You can contact me on Twitter, Randy_Martinez. And my Instagram is RandyMartinez40. And you can always, of course, go to my artist Randy Martinez fan page on Facebook.
Nice.
And you said this new thing that you're working on, this new sneak preview, when's that going to be announced?
Soon. That's all I can say. Before New York Comic Con.
Okay.
I don't even know how to define it. Is it a new Star Wars piece, or are we not saying?
Oh yeah,
right now?
I can say it's new Star Wars.
The new Star Wars piece. Okay, so the new Star Wars piece will be announced very, very shortly on Randy's Facebook and Twitter and
Instagram.
So stay tuned. All right, Skywalkers. Well, let's wrap this up by thanking all the Skywalkers who wrote in with their comments on this cover issue and had things to say about the issue itself. And we will be back with issue number 6 the final chapter, which is the final issue in the film adaptation.
Then we move on to Jackson.
Jackson.
Skywalking through vintage Marvel comics.
Well, before we wrap up this episode, let's tell people where we're going to be. So, November 14th.
Which is just a few weeks away, really.
Yeah, it's, I guess a month, right? That will be the Avengers Half Marathon weekend at Disneyland. And so on the 14th, which is Saturday, we are going to have a meetup at Downtown Disney in Anaheim, California, just to say hi. You don't have to have a ticket. You don't have to be running, but we would love to see our Skywalkers. And now, just announced on that Monday, November 16th, that is when Season of the Force will be opening at Disneyland.
That's going to be so exciting. That's going to be so...
Yeah.
How can we run and concentrate when knowing just a few hours away is Season of the Force?
I know, and also Disneyland should be decked out with a lot of Christmas stuff already. So it's going to be fun to see like Star Wars and Christmas and Disney all mashed up together. Anyway, but what we want to do, because we think that Hyperspace Mountain will be a big draw. This is when they're doing an overlay of Space Mountain to be kind of like a starfighter battle. I'm so excited about this. So what we want to do, because we figure the lines will be long, we are going to have a lineup for Hyperspace Mountain meetup.
And what better way to eat up time in line than to have a meetup?
Talking to people.
Talking to all of our friends. And
yeah.
The line will just seem like it's minutes.
Absolutely. So 7:30 p.m., we are going to all gather kind of at the entrance to Hyperspace Mountain. And once we've all gathered, we're going to go in line all together. It'll be so much fun.
Yeah, I just cannot wait to see what they're going to do with this.
Yeah.
I mean, to be in a space battle with X-Wings and TIE Fighters.
And we're all going to experience it together. So
yeah.
I'm excited. And we will have buttons with us, Skywalkers. So if you come to any of these Avengers and Season of the Force meetups, we will have our BB-8 Mickey ears button.
So we hope you all can attend, but if not, there's also December 30th, where we're all going to converge at Downtown Disney in Anaheim to see The Force Awakens together.
Oh, we have over 50 people signed up.
A theater just filled with Skywalkers, just yelling and shouting and
oh my gosh,
and not texting. So much fun. So much fun. Can't wait for that. So we hope you're all going to be in town, and we hope you're all going to be in Anaheim.
Yeah. Come join us. Now, on January 16th, well, that's a big day because, Richard, it's your birthday.
It is my birthday.
It's your birthday, and it also happens to be the Star Wars Half Marathon weekend at Disneyland. So we are going to have a birthday meetup at Downtown Disney, probably the same place as the Avengers Half Marathon meetup, and we'll all say hi and celebrate Richard's birthday, and we might have cupcakes.
What do you mean, might?
I'm just saying that might. We're on a diet right now. We can't think cupcakes too much.
Yeah, but it'll be during the marathon, so I guess no cupcakes for us, but plenty for you. And giveaways.
Yay!
And then we go a couple of months without seeing you Skywalkers at our next meetup, and that will be taking place April the 14th through the 17th at Walt Disney World for the Star Wars Half Marathon, The Dark Side Challenge.
Yeah. Woohoo.
So within that 3-day span...
I believe we said the 17th.
The 17th it is? Oh, yeah.
Because we want to have a wrap-up podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we'll do some live podcasting at that particular meetup because we want to get everyone's opinions and, of the inaugural Star Wars Half Marathon Dark Side.
Yeah. So come one, come all. Can't wait to see you all once again. Now, Sarah, before we wrap up episode 95 of Skywalking Through Neverland, we have to get ready for our Trick or Treat Spooktacular Podcast crossover contest.
Whoa, you did that without reading it.
I did do that without reading it. First time. So go grab your Trick or Treat bag.
Okay.
And we're going to head up to some podcasts out there.
That's right, which all you Skywalkers should listen to because we're going to get a treat on each one. And with that treat, you can sign up for a fabulous prize.
A bag of prizes.
A bag of fabulous prizes.
Yeah. I love this moment every Halloween when you're just about to go out trick-or-treating. And yes, even in my 40s, I go out trick-or-treating. But this time, we get to go visit all of our podcasting friends.
Yay.
So that'll be a whole lot of fun. So we have our costumes in check. We have our Halloween trick-or-treating bag. And now, which podcast should we visit first?
Oh, goodness.
We can go to Assembly of Geeks. We could go to Techno Retro Dads.
Or Muppet Cast.
Window to the Magic, since they're in our backyard.
Or we could head to Coffee with Kenobi first.
Well, you know what? Since they're always drinking coffee, they'll be up late.
Oh.
So let's maybe hit Window to the Magic. You know, there's so many choices.
That's right.
I love trick-or-treating. All right, so now, before we get too excited, we want to thank Jeffrey Baham. We want to thank Margaret Kerry and Randy Martinez.
Also, we want to thank Rob Dellinger for all his new music he provides every week.
Now, everyone, don't forget to send in your favorite fan moments.
Oh, yes, in under a minute, we need to know your favorite fan moment, Star Wars, Disney, or pop culture. So remember, you have to just record that message as a voice memo on your phone and send in to share@skywalkingthroughneverland.com. That's by far the easiest way, the best sound. There you go.
So excited to hear what you guys come up with.
Yeah. Now, social media. If you want to tweet at us, we love that. So tweet at us at SkywalkingPod on Twitter and follow us on Periscope at SkywalkingPod. You can also email us anytime, share@skywalkingthroughneverland.com. And on Instagram, I am Jedi Tink. Now, iTunes and Stitcher reviews, we love those, and it gives us just a big thrill every time we see a new one. So if you have a few moments, just click on a review and send us one in. We love that.
And give us your honest thoughts. Now, we are a proud member of the Shot Glass Digital Network, where you can hear great shows like the Deucecast Movie Show, Techno Retro Dads,
Disney Vault Talk, and Fangirls Going Rogue.
And if you're looking for an Urko-tastic time, please check out our spin-off show, Talking Apes TV, where Mark Ogushowitz and we talk Planet of the Apes television. And this week, we delve further down the rabbit hole of ape controversy. Never ends.
And now we are off to trick or treat. So while we are there, always remember,
Neverland on Alderaan.
Some imagination, huh?
To our Skywalkers and Tweetwalkers, thanks for listening. Have you left an iTunes review yet? Skywalking Through Neverland is created and produced by Richard and Sarah Woloski. Segment producers are Dave Parfit, Dave Scale, and Norma Heitman. Original music by Rob Dellinger. Creative consultant, Mark Ogushowitz. Technical advisor, Peter Heitman. Facebook administrators, Donald Wicks and Joey Pittman. Skywalking Through Neverland is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is property of Skywalking Through Neverland, copyright 2015. All rights reserved.
Sorry, it had to be said.
And our final question comes all the way from Australia. Adam P. O'Brien it is, from the Joycast Radio Networks. And he asked...
From the Jogcast.
Jogcast, oh, that's what happened when you go Irish. You know, you get it wrong. It's the Jogcast Radio Network. And he asked, do or do not, there is no trying. Or a Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. This is getting a better question and a better question. Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. Good answers?
Good answer.
Oh, yeah. All right, everyone, all together, say FORP. 1, 2, 3.
FORP!
Nice.
Let's roll. We'll do it in 30.
We're rolling like BB-8.
Yeah, we are.